Hey guys, tonight we're starting with something that seems innocent enough. Beauty. Not just ordinary beauty, but the kind that could either make you the belle of a Victorian ball or silently destroy everything you hold dear. Picture yourself waking up in the year 1855. Gas lamps flicker like exhausted little stars beyond your window. The sound of horse-drawn carriages rings through the streets. And, reflected in your vanity mirror, you glimpse a face that could inspire poets to fill countless pages. Congratulations. You're gorgeous. But here's the thing. In Victorian England, being exceptionally beautiful might not be the gift you imagine. Actually, it could be precisely what lands you in deep water. So before we continue, go ahead and like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly appreciate what we're doing here. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what hour it is there. It's always intriguing to discover who's listening from across the globe. Now lower the lights, maybe switch on a fan for that gentle ambient sound, and let's drift into tonight's story together. You're standing at the entrance of a Victorian drawing room. The wallpaper displays roses, so rigid and precise it seems like even the blossoms are too scared to move. A piano chimes softly across the room. Somebody's relative is performing an excessively lengthy song about heartbreak, and every gaze in the space keeps settling on you. You're uncertain if it's appreciation, resentment, or criticism, but you understand this. Your beauty no longer belongs to you. It's owned by the masses, by high society, by the hushed discussions that will persist long after you exit the space. That's the snare. In the Victorian era, beauty isn't armour. It isn't even a pleasant privilege. It's a spotlight you cannot extinguish, and the more intensely it glows, the more creatures it lures. Intrigued, envious, sometimes genuinely threatening. Beauty serves as currency here, worth more than gold coins, and equally carefully tallied. A woman with an unremarkable face might navigate life unnoticed, but you, with your radiant eyes, your enviable locks, your fair complexion that gleams like china, are viewed as both treasure and possible disgrace. Affluent gentlemen lean nearer, elder ladies murmur about how rapidly beauty withers, and across the room a jealous young woman hones her words like a concealed dagger. The Victorians worshipped beauty, but they also mistrusted it. Too much appeal meant enticement. Too much refinement meant pride. Too much focus meant you must be threatening. You're living evidence of contradiction. The more flawlessly you match the ideal, the more unstable your standing becomes. Enter the matrimonial marketplace. Yes, that's the actual term used, though not in refined parlour dialogue. Your appearance is now your greatest negotiating asset. Every potential husband in the vicinity evaluates it against inheritances, properties and lineage. It sounds like something from folklore, being observed, praised, wanted. But examine it closely. It's an exchange. You're not simply praised, you're evaluated. You're not simply wanted, you're graded, and the grading is merciless. One careless rumour, an implication that you behaved too familiarly, that your expression stayed too long on the inappropriate man. And instantly, your beauty transforms from advantage into burden. You're no longer pure, you're hazardous. No longer attractive, you're seductress. The identical society that elevated you on a platform will not think twice about pushing you down. Now picture the perpetual surveillance. You cannot giggle too freely. You cannot stride too confidently. Even the manner you avert your eyes is examined. In certain circles, being beautiful is likened to balancing on a rope stretched over the Thames. One slip and the descent is dramatic. Historians continue debating whether this relentless pressure generated more suffering than advantage. But the personal journals of women from that period expose the tension. Correspondence describes wakeful nights, persistent worry, even a feeling of being imprisoned in one's own body. Beauty wasn't simply praised, it was turned into a weapon, and then arrives jealousy. Your companions don't merely appreciate your features, they analyse them. Her complexion cannot be genuine, someone hisses. She must be using arsenic treatments. Yes, arsenic. Beauty products of that time were loaded with toxins. whitening agents made of lead compounds mixed with mercury. Being exceptionally beautiful often carried the assumption that you'd resorted to harmful mixtures, gradually destroying yourself for that radiance. Even if you hadn't, the rumours persisted. Every imperfection could be dismissed as proof of conceit. Every dizzy spell could be attributed to excessive use of cosmetics. Simply put, beauty never existed independently. It came with complications. And the stronger the admiration, the nastier the teeth of scandal. Picture stepping outdoors, a basic stroll down a London avenue. You sense the stares, some brief, some holding too long. A beautiful woman unaccompanied was unusual, sometimes even deemed unseemly. You're instructed to pull down your veil, to move briskly, to prevent eye contact. Why? Because beauty attracts threat. Men confuse looks for encouragement. Law enforcement, rather than defending you, might presume you're prostituting, you're stuck in contradiction, conceal your beauty and be charged with fake humility, display it and be charged with indecency. It wasn't just, it wasn't secure, and yet it was perpetual. Let's pause for a second. You might be wondering, isn't beauty always beneficial? Isn't it the magic pass? But in Victorian England, beauty could make you unapproachable in ways you didn't desire. A suitor might pursue you, not for your character, but for the decoration you'd represent beside him. A competitor might circulate lies to diminish you before you claimed the attention. A preacher might blame you for tempting men to transgression simply by occupying a room. And here's the most bitter irony. The exact traits celebrated in art, verse and canvas, delicate bone structure, glowing skin, elegant forms, were also the ones that made you vulnerable to examination, doubt, and sometimes direct animosity. Envision Queen Victoria herself, frequently depicted as ordinary compared to her stunning peers. Some experts propose that her comparative plainness actually benefited her. She could represent morality, consistency, family values. An overly beautiful monarch might have been questioned, regarded as shallow or self-absorbed. So even at the absolute peak of the social order, beauty wasn't simple authority. It was intricate, two-sided. The Victorian beauty snare is this: the quality that makes you most praised can also make you most defenceless. Too ordinary, and you risk being invisible. Too beautiful, and you risk being exposed. Somewhere between exists security. But that boundary is incredibly narrow and perpetually moving with the judgments of society. And so you remain there in that packed drawing room, the melody rising, the murmurs becoming stronger. You grin because you have to. You drop your eyes because it's anticipated. And underneath you question, is this beauty a blessing or a curse you'll never break free from? You move further into this realm of delicate parasols and firmly fastened coats. And already you sense the burden of regulations bearing down on you as if they were stones concealed inside your corset. Beauty here is not unrestricted. It is not effortless. It is restricted by protocol and tradition, with corners pointed enough to cause injury. Every look directed at you is judged against a manual of conduct you have never read, but everyone else appears to possess in their minds. You are instructed precisely how to position yourself, when to grin, how to allow your hand float at exactly the proper distance above a teacup, one incorrect angle of the wrist, and suddenly you're too aggressive, too forward, too self-important. Victorian society operates on standards stricter than any documented regulation. Men are permitted their controversies, their tobacco, their late evenings in dim clubs. Women, in contrast, exist under perpetual observation, their beauty praised in literature yet picked apart in everyday rumours. The contradiction is brutal. You must appear flawless but never acknowledge you are attempting. You must seem fragile but never feeble. You must draw focus, but only the appropriate kind of focus. Historians continue debating whether these standards were intended to safeguard women or merely to dominate them. But regardless, the outcome is identical. You feel confined in a disguise you can never shed. Take, for instance, the practice of walking. Sounds straightforward, doesn't it? Yet in the drawing rooms of Mayfair and the grimy streets of Manchester, a lady's gait is critiqued like a military formation. Too rapid and you seem common. Too sluggish and you encourage stares. A graceful movement is demanded, but heaven forbid anyone realizes you are rehearsing. Every gesture of your form is a phrase in the unspoken volume society examines and analyzes about you. Beauty is no longer simply your face. It is how you travel, how you inhale, how you occupy territory. Think about the smile. A curve of the mouth in a barely lit parlour could generate 3 separate stories. A gentleman might interpret it as welcome. A competitor might claim it was ridicule. An elderly chaperone might reprimand you for boldness. You smile because that is what society expects of an attractive woman. Yet the smile itself can transform into a harmful tool reversed against you. Personal journals from that period document the weariness of sustaining pretenses. Women recorded cheeks hurting from manufactured courtesy, a vision that clouded from never daring to hold another's stare openly. It is beauty controlled like a mare in restraints, shown off for everyone, but never permitted to run free. Even your wardrobe is a snare. The materials are dense, the skirts broad enough to topple furnishings. Yet you must move as if floating. Your corset tightens harder each year, as though society itself is constricting your chest to remind you that beauty demands suffering. You are commended for your slim waist, but talked about if your bones protrude excessively. The equilibrium is unachievable, yet required. And when your beauty earns praise, you are cautioned that praise itself is wicked, that narcissism is infiltrating, that you must atone before the looking glass. The standards penetrate into your actual speech. A beautiful woman is not meant to chuckle too boisterously, not meant to debate, not meant to appear intelligent, unless it is in the protected domain of cleverness designated for drawing rooms. Your tone must be gentle, musical, never harsh. If you challenge a gentleman too directly, you are labelled disrespectful. If you utter too little, you are termed vacant. Regardless, the standard distorts your beauty into mistrust. Society assumes a pretty face must be accompanied by humble speech, but the meaning of humility shifts with every judge and every space, and then arrives faith. Ministers caution congregations that external beauty is a perilous trap, a lure guiding men off course. A beautiful woman is honoured as God's handiwork, but simultaneously criticised as Eve's offspring, causing destruction with a look. Too beautiful, and you are instructed to confess. Too praised, and you are charged with arrogance. The actual sermons appear to ensnare you in a contradiction of wrongdoing and righteousness. The ethical standard wraps itself around your beauty more securely than any corset, and you recognise that one incorrect move could brand you permanently. Picture the tension at a formal dance. The crystal fixtures blaze, the musicians perform, and all attention shifts to the most attractive woman in the hall. She experiences both elevated and threatened. Every action is recorded, whom she addresses, how extensively she dances with him, whether she accepts a subsequent request. A solitary night can alter her standing from angelic newcomer to risky flirt. Beauty in this environment is less tiara, more restraint. You dance elegantly, but you sense the pull of that restraint in every rotation. Some women attempt to navigate the system. They avert their eyes to appear humble. They allow praise to slide away like water. They develop the impression of natural beauty, even while investing hours perfecting every element. And yet the murmurs still arrive. She is too refined. She is too praised. She must be conceited, or worse, scheming. The snare tightens even on those who follow the standards. Because the reality is, the regulations are constructed to keep you unstable, constantly struggling, never confident. Historians note that men composed many of these regulations. The protocol guides, the sermons, the speeches, all written by male authors. The standards of beauty were never impartial. They were components of a framework that valued women for looks, but penalised them for influence. And yet the women themselves implemented it too. Mothers criticized daughters, companions whispered cautions. Society overall became the ensemble, reminding every beautiful woman that her talent was also her weight. You cannot avoid it. Even in the silence of your chamber, the mirror seems like an inquisitor. Are you too white? Are your ringlets styled properly? Is your dress humble enough? You ready yourself for the following day as though readying for combat. But rather than weapons and protection, you equip yourself with cosmetics, hairpins, and flawless bearing. The conflict is endless, and the arena is your own image. And as you extinguish the lamp and collapse into troubled rest, you understand the harshest regulation of all. Beauty diminishes. That whisper remains in every praise, every stare, every jealous look. Your beauty is honored today, but tomorrow the identical society will shift to fresher faces and abandon you with only recollections of the snare you never requested to enter. You awaken to a fresh morning, and immediately the assessment starts. Beauty in Victorian England is never passive. It is money moving through the vast market of matrimony. Picture a realm where every look, every praise, every deliberately styled lock is measured like silver on scales. The parlour transforms into an auction venue, the dance floor a trading post. Your face is no longer simply yours. It is a product to be exchanged for partnerships, land, and a destiny. As you enter the crowded season in London, you understand that beauty attracts suitors the way honey attracts insects. Young men with nobility, elder men with wealth, even driven clergy observe you as if they are appraising animals. The courtship custom is refined, respectful, filled with visiting cards and measured greetings. Yet underneath the polish, it seems more like haggling over a valued possession than authentic emotion. If you are too plain, you risk being dismissed. If you are too beautiful, you risk becoming a trophy everyone desires but nobody genuinely appreciates. Families discuss you as though you are a venture. Mothers whisper that your beauty will guarantee an excellent union. Fathers brag of it to acquaintances, hoping to ascend one step further on the social hierarchy. The matrimonial marketplace is ruthless, and your value is calculated in both appearance and inheritance. The harsh reality is that excessive beauty can make you appear unreachable or questionable. Men fear that a stunning woman will be too costly, too haughty, too challenging to manage. Beauty becomes both an attraction and a warning sign. Think about the debutante gathering. The chandeliers sparkle like celestial bodies, and every young woman enters the hall like a gem positioned on exhibition. You dance with suitors beneath the attentive gazes of guardians. Each turn across the floor is an unspoken arrangement. Your grin must be friendly, but not excessively friendly. Your look welcoming, but not persistent. A single error and the whispers start. Perhaps she is loose. Perhaps she is scheming. Perhaps she craves focus excessively. Contradiction intensifies your difficulty. Beauty must radiate, but never blaze too fiercely. Historians continue debating whether the matrimonial marketplace granted women authority or simply masked their absence of it. Some argue beauty permitted a shrewd woman to rise higher than her family status would allow. Others maintain it confined her in positions she could never flee. Regardless, the proof is obvious. Beauty positioned you on a platform, but that platform could become a prison. Once wed, the identical beauty that drew your husband might subsequently trigger his possessiveness or his domination. You are commended for attracting focus until the instant you are denounced for it. There is also threat from jealousy. Competing debutantes refine their grins into instruments. Their mothers distribute whispers like liquid on absorbent material. That outfit she displayed was too bold. That giggle, too noisy. That face, possibly altered by harmful cosmetics. A solitary rumour can damage your market standing quicker than insects consume fabric. The exact quality that once attracted suitors to your entrance can equally rapidly seal every entrance in your presence. The matrimonial marketplace is not simply about emotion, it is about continuation. For numerous women, The sole path to stability is through a favourable union, and beauty is expected to assist. Yet sometimes it accomplishes the reverse. A woman excessively beautiful may frighten suitors who dread rumours or controversy. Others may chase her solely for exhibition, like obtaining a scarce artwork. Beauty can confine you in a marriage where you are cherished for your appearance but disregarded for your ideas. Picture sitting opposite a prospective husband. His dialogue is courteous, his grin practiced. You detect he perceives you less as a companion and more as an award to shine and exhibit. You chuckle at his humour, though it scarcely merits a sound. Your mother prods you beneath the surface, reminding you that beauty must be combined with appeal. And so you act once more in the perpetual performance of Victorian romance. You are praised yet unseen, valued yet reduced. Even writing mirrors this contradiction. Stories of that time frequently present the beautiful protagonist whose destiny is determined by her appearance. Sometimes she secures a magnificent marriage. Sometimes she is destroyed by envy or controversy. Audiences grasp the lesson. Beauty is influential but hazardous. Treat with caution. The narratives reflect the anxieties of society, reminding every young woman that her face could determine her trajectory more than her intellect or her determination. Think about, also, the function of wealth. A plain woman with riches might wed successfully. A beautiful woman lacking it might be rejected as a gamble. Too dazzling, and people presume she is pursuing beyond her position. Too praised, and they assume she is calculating. Beauty isolated is never sufficient. It must be harmonized flawlessly with virtue, humility, and the correct family ties. Otherwise shifts into burden. And so each morning, you ready yourself for another day in the marketplace. You secure your hair. You apply your cosmetics. You practice the courteous responses to courteous inquiries. Your image stares back at you with impeccable composure. But internally you sense the pressure. The exact beauty that attracts gazes also confines you in anticipations you can never fulfill. You ponder whether a plainer face might provide more liberty, more tranquility, fewer whispers. But that selection is not yours to execute. The realm has already determined. Beauty will be your ally and your shackles. In the stillness of darkness, after the dances and meals, you extract the pins and release the corset. Your frame exhales with comfort, yet your thoughts churn with concern. Which suitor will visit? Which rumour will circulate? Which look remained too extended? The matrimonial marketplace never rests. It pursues you into your visions, reminding you that being excessively beautiful is never simply a talent. It is a wager, and the risks are greater than you ever conceived. You step outdoors into the cramped passages of a Victorian settlement, and the atmosphere itself appears loaded with murmurs. It is not solely appreciation that tracks you, but mistrust too. Beauty in this period is a dual-edged blade, praised by some, dreaded by others. The residents observe through lace drapery, their tones hushed and cutting. She is too attractive, they mumble, as though attractiveness is indication of pride, or even sorcery. Yes, even in an era that takes satisfaction in science and advancement, the ancient traces of superstition still endure. Picture existing with that persistent buzz of resentment. The woman neighbouring shakes her skull each occasion you walk by, not because you have injured her, but because your face reminds her of what she doesn't possess. Envy becomes an instrument, refined daily on meaningless talk. The men raise their caps, but their spouses glower as though your beauty is an intentional offence. A solitary compliment from the incorrect gentleman can identify you as a danger to someone's union. You are no longer a person, but an emblem, and emblems welcome assessment. The Victorian fixation with ethics only intensifies the mistrust. Beauty is connected with enticement, and enticement with wrongdoing. A young woman whose characteristics attract excessive focus risks being termed threatening, not for what she accomplishes, but simply for how she appears. Historians continue debating whether this ethical alarm was founded in spirituality or in social management, but its consequences are documented, plainly. Let us mention friendships destroyed by envy, of families separated because one face attracted numerous stares of standings demolished with no proof beyond an attractive grin. Think about the church bench on Sunday dawn. You sink down to pray, yet sense people observing you closely. The sermon roars about self-love and how quickly attractiveness vanishes, and you realize immediately that a majority of the church is focused on you. The minister's phrases strike you like heavy stones. Attractiveness disappears, beauty corrupts, it tempts. You find yourself caught once more in the contradiction. Beauty is lauded in verses but criticized in daily interactions. A ribbon too vibrant or a bonnet too daring can swiftly transform compliments into accusations. Even the scientific community joins this wave of disapproval. Physicians of the era publish papers asserting that exceptionally beautiful women are prone to nervous disorders, fragile minds incapable of serious thought. Some suggest beauty signifies weak nerves, as if the physical perfection must be compensated for by spiritual failings. These supposed medical explanations lend credibility to common gossip. Suddenly, your warm cheeks are not merely appealing, they are worrying signs. Your fair skin is not praised, but feared as an indication of sickness. And then there is the deep-seated folklore inherited from centuries past. The notion that beauty itself might be unnatural, perhaps linked to evil influences. A woman who is too striking is spoken of quietly, as if she must have made a secret bargain for her loveliness. Somewhere between scripture and legend the suspicion takes hold. Beauty is not just distrusted, it is terrifying. You notice this when parents steer their children away as you walk through the square, in the way older women quietly make the sign of the cross when you approach. Picture the weight of that fear at a community gathering. The fireplace crackles, the violins play, but the merriment nearby feels strained. Someone lets slip a remark, half jesting, half malicious. Too pretty by half, as if your appearance is a misdemeanor. The words smart more than you let on. The enjoyment of the evening fades. You recognize again that beauty does not simply grant advantages. It also marks you as a target. Rivalry among equals is another risk. A competitor with a sharp tongue can ruin you faster than any true misconduct. She requires no proof, only a hint. Did you observe her lingering near him? Did you notice her flushed complexion? The rumour spreads like fluid in water, tainting everything it touches. Once started, it is unstoppable. And the more appealing you are, the more readily people accept the worst claims. Historians note that this atmosphere of doubt was especially harsh on women with little influence. A man admired for his charm might advance socially. A woman admired for her looks might just as easily suffer disgrace. She is seen as conceited, manipulative, not to be trusted. Her beauty becomes a facade. People assume hidden destructive motives. Even literature strengthens this distrust. Novels are filled with characters whose attractiveness signifies not morality, but deception, confirming the belief that to possess great beauty is to be morally questionable. And yet, in moments of privacy, you feel the burden most acutely. The constant vigilance, the hushed remarks, the veiled hostility slowly consume your peace. You contemplate concealing yourself under plain colours, lowering your gaze, speaking less loudly. But even modesty is twisted into suspicion. They claim you are pretending, that you are overly conscious of your charms, that humility itself is a form of manipulation. There is no way out. The doubt steers every path back towards you. Think also of the strange practices of protection. Families sometimes urge their daughters to minimize their looks to avoid arousing envy. A simple bonnet, a dull dress, fewer accessories, anything to divert attention. But these efforts seldom succeed. Beauty is evident, even when hidden, and the whispers return more cutting than before. Too beautiful, too dangerous, too self-important. The pattern repeats without end, and still you must endure. Imagine lying awake at night, the candle burning low, replaying every look, every phrase, every piece of gossip. Should you have smiled less? Should you have spoken differently? Should you dim your presence to please others? The questions chase each other endlessly, like flickers on the wall. The truth presses in. Beauty is not freedom. Beauty is a constraint forged from doubt and jealousy. When you get up the following morning, you ready yourself again, smoothing your hair, arranging your clothes, stepping into a world where admiration and resentment are inseparable. Beauty will grant entry and forcefully reject you. Beauty will earn praise and spark envy. Beauty will attract allies and create rivals, all at once. And you are left balancing on that fragile line again, hoping to navigate another day without a misstep into disgrace. The streetlights flicker in the hazy evening, and you find yourself walking past a series of storefronts, their displays shining with silk ribbons, ivory combs, and the latest fashion plates from Paris. You pause to look and immediately feel the strain of another restriction, one created by society's fixation on outward appearance. Fashion is more than just clothing here. It is a moral declaration. Every selection of material, shade, or design becomes a public statement, judged by everyone from your neighbour to the daily papers. The more attractive you are, the more intensely those judgments weigh. People of the era believed beauty must be dressed conservatively, restricted by layers of cloth and strict guidelines. A dress too bright or too revealing suggests conceit. A hemline too high above the ankle violates standards of decency. Even the width of a ribbon could spark discussion. Fashion is a language, and if you are too beautiful, every sentence you wear is scrutinized with the harshest interpretation. Imagine the pressure of dressing daily, knowing that one error could label you careless or, worse, immoral. Consider the notorious controversies about hoop skirts. Those massive cage-like structures of whalebone and wire transformed skirts into airy tent-like shapes. A fashionable lady could barely pass through doorways or sit comfortably in a carriage, yet convention required it. The shape itself was a demonstration of rank, a walking sculpture of prosperity and sophistication. But if you were already blessed with beauty, the hoop skirt became a hazard. People whispered that you wore it to show off, that your grandeur was calculated, not naive. An unremarkable woman in a wide skirt was stylish. A beautiful woman in the same skirt was scheming. Historians still debate whether fashion empowered women by granting them visibility or confined them by emphasizing difference. Regardless, the evidence is clear. Fashion regulated beauty, transforming admiration into suspicion. The richer your attire, the more critics questioned your humility. The plainer your attire, the more they muttered that you were concealing arrogance. No option was safe. Period fashion magazines highlight this conflicting situation. Their pages lavish praise on elegance while also warning readers not to seem vain, not to attract excessive attention. The contradiction is endless. Now, step into the sitting room, where a group of women discuss the latest scandal. A young actress wore a dress cut slightly lower at the neckline, and immediately she is branded immoral. Her beauty amplifies the perceived offence. Had she been ordinary looking, perhaps people would not have cared. But beauty combined with boldness is seen as an incitement, and society attacks. You realise with a shiver that the same principle applies to you. Every button, every ribbon is examined not only for style, but for ethical meaning. Even men join the criticism. Newspaper cartoonists draw exaggerated images of stylish women, mocking their hoop skirts, their tall hair arrangements, their elaborate headwear. Beauty is turned into comedy, cruel laughter echoing across the pages. You may never perform on a stage, but your clothing becomes a display judged daily by a merciless audience. A fashion mistake is not simply an error, it is a moral failing. Cosmetics present another hazard. The powders and lotions promise a perfect radiance, but they contain toxins. Many include lead, mercury, even arsenic. The grim irony is that to maintain the beauty that earns compliments, you risk sacrificing your health. Yet if your complexion suffers, you are criticized for neglect. If it glows too brightly, you are accused of deception. The gossip network operates constantly. She must be using dangerous chemicals. She must be vain. And once more, beauty becomes dangerous. Imagine getting ready for an evening dance. You stand facing the mirror as your attendant laces you into a dress heavy with silk and reinforced with whalebone. The confining garment pushes against your ribs. The material presses down on your shoulders, but you know the attendees expect nothing less. You attach a small ornament at your neck, hesitate, and take it off. Perhaps it suggests too much pride. The calculation never stops. Every decision is weighed against societal rules, and the more beautiful you are, the more people demand flawless presentation. The fixation goes beyond women. Artists, photographers, even early advertisers use beauty to promote standards. An attractive face in a print becomes the model of righteousness. But step outside, and the same face is condemned for self-obsession. Beauty is elevated in art and mistrusted in reality. You sense the inconsistency with every picture, every fashion sketch. Beauty is exploited but never confided in, celebrated but never safe. In personal correspondence, women admit their fatigue. One writes of dreading every public outing, not out of shyness, but from fear of being judged. Another details the endless effort of dressing, styling, hair, perfecting manners, only to be met with whispers about arrogance and misconduct. The very effort required by fashion is then used as proof against them. The confinement tightens, and there is no escape. Historians observe that satire frequently targeted women precisely because fashion made them visible. The more elaborate the dress, the easier to ridicule. The more striking the beauty, the quicker the suspicion. A society fearful of feminine influence masked its anxieties as jokes and moral lessons. Beauty was the excuse, fashion the weapon, and women the victims. And so, as you move away from the beauty shop windows, the ribbons fluttering in the lamplight, you feel again the contradiction of your era. You must be beautiful, yet restrained, adorned, yet unassuming, admired, yet quiet. The fashion that should honour your beauty instead becomes its judge. Beauty in this society is never unrestrained. It is always constrained by regulations, and the rules shift like shadows, ensuring that you are always just a moment away from public disapproval. When you return home and finally loosen the cords of your confining garment, your body aches, but your spirit aches more. You yearn for the freedom to dress without worry, to appreciate beauty without being suspected. Yet you know tomorrow will bring another round of decisions, another trial of judgment. Beauty requires a performance, and performance demands perfection. And in this world, perfection itself can be dangerous. You awaken in the faint morning light, and your body already recalls the confining garment. The memory is written in bruised ribs and shallow breaths. Attractiveness of the time is not only about faces and clothing, it is about the physical form imposed upon you by whalebone and laces. The confining garment is both honour and confinement, promising grace while delivering suffering. It squeezes your midsection, raises your chest, straightens your posture until you resemble the ideal shape celebrated in fashion drawings. But each pull of the laces intensifies the trap. Imagine standing before your mirror as your attendant pulls the cords tighter. The compression increases, your lungs fight for room, and yet you smile. Because this is the essence of attraction. This is what the publications guarantee, a tiny waist that signifies refinement without a single word. Society assumes the smaller the waist, the greater the morality, and so you endure. You enter the ballroom with your head high, even as your abdomen tightens. and your ribs protest. Scholars still debate whether most women truly wore their confining garments as tightly as the satirical images suggest. Some evidence shows extreme tight lacing, others indicate moderate use. Yet the societal pressure was undeniable. The confining garment symbolized control, both self-discipline and the control of society over women. A beautiful figure proved that you complied with the regulations of fashion and decency. If you refused, you risked whispers about carelessness, not only of dress, but of character. The medical profession also weighed in. Doctors warned of crushed internal organs, misaligned ribs, weak lungs. Some claimed confining garments led to nervous disorders or temporary loss of consciousness. Yet, in a strange twist, fainting itself became desirable. A momentary collapse in a crowded space confirmed fragility, confirmed femininity. It was beauty redefined as weakness. The confining garment created the very frailty society claimed to sympathize with but secretly admired. You were expected to be charming and slightly prone to swooning, as though being near collapse was the ultimate accessory. Consider the experience of a long day in such restraint. The morning dressing is manageable. The afternoon carriage ride becomes uncomfortable. By evening, as you sit through endless dinner courses, each breath feels like a choice between survival and proper conduct. Yet you laugh softly at jokes you barely hear, because beauty must never reveal distress. You sip water not because you are thirsty, but because it is the only thing you can tolerate. In such confinement, the garment also communicates social status. Affluent women wear silk-lined versions decorated with lace. Less wealthy women endure stiffer, rougher designs. Yet all are judged by the shape created. Too wide a midsection and your beauty is dismissed. Too dramatic a midsection and your vanity is condemned. There is no secure middle path. Beauty again proves hazardous. Too plain invites mockery. Too perfect invites envy and suspicion. Imagine being a young girl laced into her first confining garment. Barely a teenager, her body still developing, yet already shaped by expectation, she learns to breathe lightly, to move carefully. She feels the burden of generations whispering that beauty necessitates sacrifice. Her future is woven into those stitches. The confining garment is not just material, it is destiny. Critics of the time ridiculed the custom. Satirical illustrations showed women collapsing in public or being attended to by physicians holding smelling salts. But the jokes did not end the fashion. If anything, they reinforced it. Beauty was always perched on the edge of ridicule. The more attention you attracted, the more unstable your position became, and the garment ensured. You could never forget the cost of being admired. The irony deepens when you consider that men too sometimes wore confining garments. Military officers and stylish gentlemen laced themselves for posture and elegance. Yet when women did it, society accused them of conceit. When men did it, society praised discipline. The double standard is clear. Beauty, when female, is a danger. Beauty, when male, is strength. The confining garment becomes another instance of how the Victorian world transformed beauty into a risk. At night, when you finally loosen the laces, the relief is overwhelming. You breathe deeply, your ribs expanding as if reclaiming lost territory. The marks on your skin reveal the story, red lines like silent complaints. You rub them gently, wondering how many more years your body can endure this routine. And yet you know tomorrow you will lace up again. Because to decline would be to step outside the bounds of beauty, and to step outside is to invite. Ruined letters from the period describe women hiding loosened confining garments under shawls, hoping no one would notice. At home, personal journals confess secret moments of freedom, hours enjoyed without laces, when they could breathe and move naturally. But such moments were rare, for public life demanded uniformity, and uniformity demanded discomfort. The confining garment was the entry price into society, and every beautiful woman paid it. Historians debate whether women truly believed in the confining garment or simply complied with it. Perhaps some felt genuine pride in their silhouette. Perhaps others resented it, but felt trapped by expectation. Either way, the outcome was the same. Beauty required sacrifice, and the garment embodied that truth. It was both symbol and tool of the beauty trap of the era. And so, as you lie down, the lamplight dimming, you consider the contradiction the confining garment creates for you. Admired but also delicate, praised but also pitied. The very item that promises perfection threatens your health and autonomy. Too beautiful, too perfectly shaped. And society begins to question what you gave up. What vanity motivated you to such extremes? Beauty once again proves to be not a benefit, but a hazard. The morning will arrive shortly, and with it, the laces. Once more, the sequence continues. Each day begins with the tightening of cords and the reminder that in this environment, beauty is never free. It costs breath, ease, and sometimes even life. The confining garment is the perfect symbol of this era's beauty standards. Elegant, dangerous, and impossible to evade. The coolness of an English morning creeps through the window coverings, and you prepare for another day of performance. This time, the stage is your own appearance. Beauty standards of the era worship the faint glow of delicate faces, the fragile sheen of complexions unmarked by the sun. A healthy tan might later become fashionable, but here in the 19th century, it suggests manual labour, neediness, and the dishonour of perspiration. True refinement must look untouched, as if life itself would never dare to affect you. You venture outside only briefly, beneath a sunshade large enough to shield not just your face, but your reputation as well. Gloves protect your hands. Veils soften the outlines of your features. Pale skin suggests wealth, leisure, the ability not to work hard. Yet beneath the compliments lurks another danger. Excessive paleness invites the suspicion that you are unwell. Consumption, the debilitating illness of the time, is almost a style choice. Painters depict female protagonists with sunken cheeks and sparkling eyes. Poets write of beauty diminishing like a flame. Scholars still argue whether society romanticized illness because it genuinely admired fragility, or because it feared robust health in women as something too potent, too challenging. Imagine the powders arranged in small containers on your dressing table. They tout a perfect radiance but hold deadly arsenic, wafers, lead-laced cosmetics, mercury solutions. The printed notices promise luminescence, a youth forever held, yet it's a secret. Physicians caution that these mixtures corrode the outer layer, weaken the system, and prematurely end existence. To seek the white ideal that society insists upon, one risks slow poisoning. You smooth the fine dust across your features. You're observed adjusting the light so the lethal powder settles without unevenness. You smile at your own image, but question whether charm itself is causing your decline. Resentment sharpens once more in this pursuit. Your neighbours examine your colouring as if it were a gauge of morality. Too pale, and you face charges of vanity, of using chemicals. Too flushed, and you are accused of crudeness, of spending too much time outdoors. The equilibrium is unreachable, yet each morning you must attempt it. The more appealing you look, the faster the whispers arise. She must be concealing something. She must be unwell. She must be self-obsessed. Recall the irony of those sick-room novels that circulate in libraries. The delicate female protagonist, fading away upon her cushion, is described with admiration. Her beauty glows even as her vitality wanes. Young readers sigh over her faint allure. Society declares her virtue unquestionable exactly because she is too weak to resist temptation. And still, for women who are truly living, this fictional standard becomes a sentence. To appear robust is unfashionable. To appear sick is questionable. But to appear beautifully unwell is the peak of attraction, a contradiction honed into daily routine. Even artwork reflects this preoccupation. Painters focus on transparent skin, the faint blue vessels under the wrist, the softness of cheeks that seem ready to disappear. Full portraits are commissioned not to capture character but to record skin tone. The effect is strange. The subject's eyes shine, the skin glistens, yet the personhood fades. Attractiveness becomes an object, a frail facade, admired more for its fragility than its depth. And if you happen to own such beauty in reality, you find yourself caught within that same disguise, unable to move without comment. Medical journals of the time reveal the inconsistencies. Doctors warn of the perils of indoor lives, lack of movement, weakened health. Yet those same doctors recommend arsenic tonics or carbolic cleansers for spots. Society disapproves of sickness, yet romanticizes its image. Beauty becomes both a sign and a measure. The division between wellness and style blurs until no one can pinpoint where one concludes and the other commences. Picture walking into a packed parlour. All eyes flick toward your cheeks. Too flushed, and whispers stir. Did she hasten her travel here too quickly, too pale? And doubts arise. Perhaps she has consumption, perhaps she powders excessively. You sense the anxiety in every stride. Beauty isn't a gift, but a perpetual trial, one you are certain to fail. Because the mandates change constantly, the approval is temporary. The doubt is lasting. Correspondence written by young women describes secret worries. One regrets that her healthy appearance is labelled common. Another admits she ingested arsenic wafers for weeks before realizing her health was failing. These admissions rarely become public, but they expose the truth beneath the glamour. Beauty in Victorian times is not just socially hazardous, it is physically dangerous to the individual. And still, you persevere. The sunshade, the coverings, the netting, the cosmetics. You cannot withdraw from the challenge because doing so would label you as careless, plain, perhaps even rough. The expectations press down like unseen hands, forcing you into decisions that destroy even as they commend you. You convince yourself it is essential. You convince yourself survival relies on it. Yet deep down you realize that the same society praising your faint brightness is the one slowly poisoning you. Academics today debate whether women truly believed in the fictional ideal of weakness, or whether they tolerated it as another burden of requirement. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps some found solace in the idea that their suffering was admired. Perhaps others felt only the fatigue of unending suspicion. Regardless, the structure remains. Attractiveness connected to risk. Beauty associated with sickness. Beauty applauded in artwork and punished in real existence. As you put out the lamp at night, you observe your image one last moment. The faint illumination seems almost phantom-like, already receding into shadow. You wonder if tomorrow they will call you charming or sickly, if the approval will endure or the doubt will prevail. The truth presses in like the night air. Beauty in this era is always delicate, always risky, always demanding more than it offers. The streetlights flicker in the haze, and you feel another form of strain, not from corsets or powders, but from the heaviness of your own hair. In Victorian society, a woman's hair is more than decoration. It is worth. It is celebrated in poetry, featured in paintings, kept in lockets, and even exchanged in unofficial markets. A flow of glossy curls can elevate your appeal to myth, but it can also ignite non-stop gossip, suspicion, and resentment. You recognize that every single thread carries significance. Picture sitting for hours while your attendant styles the complex arrangements required by convention. Braids twine into crowns, loops fall over shoulders. False pieces are added for fullness. Hot tools hiss in the atmosphere, releasing the odour of singed strands. Each action is a rite of authority and patience. The finished style is impressive, but heavy. Your head hurts, your neck stiffens, and yet you must smile, as if the crown upon your head were weightless. Beauty here is judged by length, thickness, and luster. The longer the hair, the more upright the woman, so the publications declare. Yet, academics still question whether this idea was based in old symbolism of morality or simply in commercial need, since the hair commerce flourished on the tresses of the struggling poor. Indeed, the trade is real. Travel down a London passage and you might see signs offering to purchase hair for cash. A humble woman sells her braid to feed her family, while a wealthy lady secures those same threads into her updo. The irony is sharp. Beauty for one becomes survival for another. Your abundant hair may not even be entirely your own, but society will still evaluate you by it. They will whisper if it shines too much, they will sneer if it dulls, they will gossip if you shorten it, they will condemn if you expose too much of it. Hair is also linked to morality. Too loose and flowing, and you are called wild, improper, perhaps even sinful. Too tightly secured, and you are called plain, suppressed. The equilibrium once more is unreachable. At evening gatherings, a single curl escaping its pins can start chatter. Some label it charming, others call it careless. Either way, your allure becomes the focus of discussion. The hair upon your head transforms into a field of conflict where standing is won or lost. Think about the customs of grief. When a family mourns, hair is cut, saved, woven into adornments, or placed inside lockets. A lovely woman's hair is not just praised in life, but cherished in death. Yet even this emotion carries risk. Imagine realizing that your tresses could someday be displayed as mementos, that your appeal is never fully your own, but always claimed by others. The very strands that draw praise also mark you as property. Poets of the age wax lyrical about golden locks, black curls, shining reddish-brown waves. Painters emphasize detail, brushing light across threads until they glow like halos. But the more art celebrates hair, the more real women suffer under requirement. If your hair is not long enough, thick enough, luminous enough, you fail. If it is too perfect, you are accused of vanity or sorcery. Again, the cycle proceeds without mercy. Even men are caught in the flurry, though in different forms. A gentleman's facial hair or moustache signals power or weakness depending on trends. Yet when women demand attention, it is never positive. A woman with noticeable hair is lauded in verse but doubted in life. Too much beauty always circles back to hazard. A halo becomes a target, a crown becomes a restraint. Imagine the private customs at night. The attendant removes the curls one by one, setting aside hairpieces, brushing through snarls. The pressure eases, yet your scalp pulses. You sigh with relief, but also fear. Tomorrow the process starts again. Hours of effort for moments of approval, and endless possibility of doubt. Journals from the period mention the fatigue of hair maintenance, the aching arms from brushing, the restless nights spent protecting complex styles. Women admit they sometimes long to cut it all off, to be free. Yet they knew freedom would cost them their position in society. Hair also brings up associations of temptation. Biblical echoes remain. Samson, Delilah, Eve. The Victorians view long, free-flowing hair as both purity and risk. A woman who is too attractive, with hair too rich, is blamed for leading men astray. She does nothing but enter a room, and still accusations assemble. She is a temptress, a peril to the moral structure. The strands upon her shoulders morph into symbols far outside her command. Academics point out how hair also supported business. Locks from across the continent were gathered, organized, colored, sold. Thousands of artificial pieces and hair additions crossed oceans. The beauty ideal was not just cultural, it was commercial. A woman's value was measured thread by thread, and vast markets flourished on that standard. Beauty thus became finance, and finance increased the dangers. Now picture yourself at a social event. The lights sparkle. The string instruments play, and you feel eyes on your hair more than your garment. The shine catches the light, and whispers spread through the room. Some admire, some envy, some accuse. Did she buy it? Did she cheat with colours? Did she waste hours on vanity? The praise is never simple. It is always mixed with doubt. At night, when you loosely braid your hair for rest, you contemplate the contradiction. The strands that designate you as lovely also designate you as vulnerable. You cannot hide them, you cannot stop them from growing, and yet you are never free from their burden. Beauty adheres, even when you wish to let it go. And in this world of endless judgment, beauty once more proves perilous. The street is noisy with motion as carriages clatter over stones and sellers call out their goods. You pull your wrap tighter, not for warmth, but for propriety. For in Victorian times, beauty does not belong solely to formal rooms or dances. It affects the class division. Poor but attractive women carry an especially great hardship. Their charm draws attention, yet instead of praise, it sparks doubt, envy, and often open hostility. A face too striking on a girl without means is viewed as a weapon instead of a gift. Imagine a housemaid in a wealthy home. She cleans metal, arranges flowers, and carries food through rooms filled with guests. Her looks are clear, even in plain attire. The lady of the house notices quickly. So do the male guests. Other employees, her fellow maids, whisper behind her, accusing her of setting traps for the man of the house. The mistress watches with narrowed gaze, as if beauty itself is a plot. Already the girl is faulted for ambition simply for possessing the features she was born with. Academics still discuss whether the Victorian focus on female virtue was more severe on the poor or merely more evident. Yet journals from the time are full of harsh comments about scheming girls who dared to be too lovely without dowries. Gossip portrays them as hunters trying to rise above their position, seeking marriage through temptation. Beauty becomes a sort of offence when it is not softened by riches. It is permitted in drawing rooms but condemned in kitchens. Consider the situation of saleswomen in London. Department stores rise like shining palaces, and their counters are staffed by young women selected not only for skill but for appearance. Customers notice beauty first. They buy more when greeted by an appealing face. Yet behind the pleasant counter, the same beauty invites danger. A jealous spouse may complain to the manager. A male shopper may linger too long, offering unwelcome attention. A rumour may start that the girl encourages flirting. And once the rumour exists, her income is at risk. Beauty makes her useful, but also easily replaced. Even literature reflects this bias. Stories portray poor but charming female leads as either angels lifted by marriage or sinners ruined by temptation. The lesson is evident. An attractive woman without money must prove herself moral every moment or be cast down. Any error, no matter how small, is seen as manoeuvring. A laugh becomes seduction. A look becomes proof. A relationship with a wealthy man becomes scandal. Now imagine walking through a busy marketplace. The stands are overflowing with food, fish, and rolls of fabric. You feel eyes following you, not with praise but with assessment. Sellers mutter that a girl so pretty must be planning to ensnare a rich partner. Women hold their baskets closer, as if beauty were contagious. The gazes are heavy, the whispers non-stop. Your beauty makes you noticeable but never secure. The inconsistency deepens in the workspace. Some factories quietly prefer attractive employees, believing they draw attention to products. Yet these same women are the first accused of vanity. If they adjust a ribbon or smooth their hair, their pay remains low and their standing fragile. At any moment, a jealous supervisor or a suspicious co-worker can turn admiration into disapproval. Beauty at the bottom of the social structure is not a path upward, it is quicksand. Academics note the cruel double standard. Wealthy women are praised for beauty and criticized for vanity. Poor women are criticized for both. They cannot afford the costly cosmetics or clothing, yet if they appear too bright, they are accused of deception. If they appear too plain, they are completely overlooked. There is no safe space. The very quality that should lift them instead becomes the source for unending doubt. Consider, too, the risk of mistreatment. Employers and house owners take advantage of beauty, offering favours in exchange for silence. A woman who is too attractive risks becoming the focus of rumours, whether or not she accepts attention. Refusal causes anger. Acceptance causes scandal. There is no successful route. Beauty becomes a prison with bars, unseen yet unbreakable. At evening gatherings in less affluent areas, the trap closes once more. A pretty girl dancing at a celebration is cheered until she attracts too many eyes. Then suddenly she is accused of vanity or immorality. The same neighbours who applauded her moments before now whisper cautions to their sons. Beauty switches from celebration to condemnation in the space of a single tune. You quickly learn that every smile is risky, every laugh an invitation to slander. Even faith plays a part. Religious leaders warn that beauty without modesty is a curse. They preach that poor but attractive women must be especially careful lest their looks become traps for men. The sermons echo through churches, reminding you that what you were born with can condemn you before you even act. The burden of such warnings presses harder on those without money to protect them. Beauty without wealth is framed as temptation itself, and yet, despite the dangers, beauty still holds influence. Some poor women marry well, some escape poverty by capturing the attention of men with resources. But these tales are repeated with resentment, often presented as warnings. She schemed, she misled, she trapped him. Rarely is affection acknowledged, rarely is action admitted. Beauty once again is rewritten by others, never by the woman who possesses it. As you go to sleep after another day of stares and whispers, you reflect on the harsh truth. Beauty is not neutral. It is interpreted like a book by everyone around you, and the reading is rarely kind. For the poor, it is often the heaviest hardship. Too beautiful, and you are envied, doubted, accused. Too plain, and you are unseen. Either way, you are caught. Beauty, meant to uplift, instead becomes the restriction that binds. The theatre is loud with expectation. Vehicles line the street, lights spill golden colour onto rich gowns and polished footwear. Inside, the atmosphere vibrates with scent and talk, yet as the curtain rises, all eyes are not only on the platform but on the women who dare to stand there. In Victorian society, an actress may be adored for her beauty, but she is never trusted. Her face becomes a spectacle, her body a product, her reputation a delicate item that can break with a single rumour. Imagine being one of these women. You step into the light, your costume shining, your hair styled in complex curls. The audience gasps not just at your script, but at your presence. For a moment you are dazzling, yet praise quickly turns into doubt. The very beauty that earns applause also invites judgment. Society whispers that actresses are no better than courtesans, that their ability is a disguise for wickedness. Academics still debate whether this stigma was rooted in class prejudice or in fear of women having public influence. Regardless, the outcome is clear. A beautiful actress walks a fine line between celebrity and disgrace. Consider the contradiction. The same men who condemn actresses for indecency rush to theatres night after night. They write letters, send presents, wait at stage exits. They call the actresses dangerous, yet cannot keep away. Beauty becomes both lure and fault. The actresses themselves are caught by the inconsistency. Their ability to earn a living depends on their looks, yet those same looks are used to destroy them. In society columns, newspapers thrive on this double standard. They print glowing assessments of performances alongside cutting comments about appearance. One day you are praised for your captivating eyes. The next you are mocked for being too aggressive, too tempting, too much. The press acts as judge, jury, and executioner. And for women whose careers depend on public approval, this close examination is destructive. A single scandal, factual or invented, can end everything. Imagine leaving the stage after a successful show. Your heart pounds with excitement. But outside the theatre, a crowd waits. Some cheer, others mock. A jealous wife whispers that you draw men away. A religious figure mutters that your beauty is a trap. Children laugh, pointing at the bright colour of your stage makeup. You rush into the carriage, knowing tomorrow's papers will decide whether you are angel or temptress. The doubt extends beyond the theatre. Wealthy sponsors sometimes keep actresses as mistresses, feeding the idea that beauty on stage is inseparable from wrongdoing. Even women who refuse advances are assumed guilty. The more attractive the actress, the more certain society seems of her moral failing. Beauty that should be honoured as talent's partner becomes proof of moral deficiency. Even literature echoes the stigma. Stories feature actresses as tragic figures, brilliant yet fated. Their beauty is portrayed as both gift and curse, leading them into ruin. Readers absorb the lesson. A beautiful woman who enters the public eye will pay the cost. Whether in fiction or reality, society insists the price of beauty is downfall. Now consider the private existence of such a woman. She returns home after midnight, worn out from performance, yet too awake to sleep. She takes off her costume layer by layer, wipes the paint from her face. The image in the mirror shows not a siren, but a tired worker. Yet outside, the world will never believe it. Neighbours whisper, lovers boast, critics sneer. Her beauty has been turned into a public asset, analysed by strangers. She may wish for anonymity, but anonymity is denied to the too beautiful. Academics point out that, despite the stigma, some actresses carved noteworthy lives. They earned fortunes, travelled widely, even supported social causes. Yet even their successes were overshadowed by gossip. A beautiful woman in charge of her career was deemed threatening. Newspapers painted her as manipulative, her beauty as a weapon. Men in power feared her self-reliance and disguised that fear as moral outrage. The contradiction deepens with opera singers and dancers. Their beauty was essential to their craft, yet the same qualities drew criticism. A plain performer might be judged only on ability. But a beautiful one was judged first on appearance and then condemned for it. No amount of control or talent could outweigh the doubt. Beauty remained a disadvantage, even when paired with brilliance. Imagine again the applause ringing through the theatre. You bow, smiling, though inside you feel the pressure of every stare. Every clap is dual-edged. Each cheer conceals a murmur of doubt. Each bunch of flowers may hide a rumour waiting to bloom. The stage is both honour and danger. Loveliness exalts you, yet simultaneously threatens to cause your downfall. During quieter stretches, you might walk alone on deserted avenues after a theatre call. The gas lamps waver, your steps resound, and you question if life would have been simpler with less striking looks. Perhaps then you could act without people whispering, sing without being judged. Still, you understand society would merely forge another restraint. Beauty is merely the most evident pretext. And so, every night you proceed, stepping into the spotlight, aware it can both scorch and illuminate. The audience claps. The critics sharpen their quills. The rumour mills grind endlessly. Your looks remain your greatest peril and your singular defence. To be a performer in Victorian England means existing within a contradiction, praised, begrudged, mistrusted, and never granted peace. The morning light streams over your dressing table, bringing a different burden. not of stays or slander, but of science, or what passed for it then. Physicians of the era were keen to catalogue, measure, and diagnose. Beauty became another object for their examination. If you were too comely, you might find yourself subjected to medical theories that changed reverence into suspicion. Doctors proposed your arresting features were signs of frailty, weakness, or even dangerous emotional intensity. The same countenance lauded in verse could be denounced inside a clinic. Picture yourself sitting rigidly in a consultation room. The air carries the scent of carbolic and damp paper. A physician studies you over his lenses. He views you not as a person, but as a case study. Your glowing skin is red as a symptom of nervous delicacy, your wide eyes as evidence of hysteria, your slim waist as a sign of feebleness. He records these findings in a ledger and assures your family that such intense beauty often accompanies instability. You depart not with medicine, but with the realization that your very appearance has been turned into a medical verdict. Historians still debate whether these medical claims were truly accepted or simply a convenient method for controlling women. Regardless, the outcome was identical. Beauty was rebranded as sickness. The term hysteria fills medical journals, becoming a universal explanation for everything from fainting to sorrow to defiance. A beautiful woman is particularly exposed. Doctors insist her nervous system is oversensitive. Her passions are too vigorous, her constitution too frail. The greater your beauty, the more fragile they declare you must be. Consider the excessive emotional force. Recommended treatments: confinement to bed for weeks, known as rest cures, bloodletting and purging to regulate bodily fluids, frigid baths, or electric shocks to soothe the nerves. Some doctors recommended matrimony as treatment, asserting that female charm must be securely confined to domesticity. Others cautioned that too much beauty encourages vanity, leading to madness. Imagine hearing these pronouncements, knowing they lack any basis in fact, yet they all possess authority in the public eye. Even psychology joins the chorus. Early theorists argued that beautiful women were inclined toward risky desires. They spoke of hyper-excitement, of moral deficiencies, of the necessity for stringent supervision. If you display autonomy, they label it insubordination. If you voice unhappiness, they call it an ailment. Beauty becomes not merely a social handicap, but a medical one. Your standing can be damaged not just by rumours, but by a doctor's chart. Literature echoes these anxieties. Novels depict heroines whose looks drive them toward insanity. The message is that beauty must be restrained, or it will ruin you. The public accepts these stories as warnings, strengthening the conviction that too much allure is perilous, both ethically and physically. Imagine the indignity of being ordered a rest cure. You are confined to a dimmed room, forbidden from reading, writing, or speaking for extended periods. Your meals are meagre, your movement restricted. You feel your intellect dulling, your spirit diminishing. Yet your physician praises the regimen, insisting it will calm your nerves. In reality, it is penalty masked as cure, a means to silence women whose attractiveness and presence cause social discomfort. Some women resist this. They write secretly. They defy their confinement. They challenge the presumed authority of men who transform beauty into pathology. Personal journals reveal the bitterness, anger, and despair of those held in these medical prisons. Yet their protests are dismissed as additional proof of hysteria. The trap closes tighter. Beauty provides the justification. Science supplies the restraints. Historians note the painful irony. Men admired lovely women publicly but feared them privately. Physicians converted that fear into dogma. Society accepted those ideas as truth, and women bore the cost. Their beauty was never simply appreciated. It was analysed, scrutinised, and minimised until they doubted their own capabilities. Consider the murmurs in drawing rooms. She is too highly strung, they whisper. She is frail. She requires close supervision. The words sound sympathetic, but carry condemnation. They become obstacles to independence, opportunities, and marriage prospects. A beautiful woman may be adored in portraits, yet limited in her life because doctors deem her delicate. And still, despite the absurdity, some women accept the narrative. They start to believe that their looks make them feeble, that they must guard against their own feelings. They speak softly, tread cautiously, avoid drawing attention. In attempting to evade diagnosis, they lose their liberty. Beauty proves perilous once again, not for what it is, but for what others determine it signifies. At night, you sit by the window, the city buzzing outside, and wonder if your reflection is truly a misfortune. You feel vibrant, capable, well, yet society insists you are fragile, weak, unbalanced. The contradiction troubles you. But tomorrow you will present a pleasant demeanour, because to appear too challenging would provoke another diagnosis, another admonition, another order for quietude. In this world, knowledge and superstition are intertwined. Beauty transforms into sickness. Beauty transforms into frailty. Beauty becomes proof that you must be controlled. The doctors close their ledgers, satisfied, and you are left with the awareness that the loveliness you never chose has become a medical liability. You cannot discard it. You cannot modify it. You can only bear it. The evening candles flicker as you sit in a crowded sitting room, listening to the swish of gowns and the murmur of polite talk. It seems harmless enough, but beneath the pleasantry lies a reality every Victorian woman recognises. A reputation can shatter quicker than a glass dropped on stone, and beauty is frequently the hammer that breaks it. The more charming you are, the more precarious your standing becomes. A single whisper, a slight frown, a mere rumour can shift you from adored innocent, disgraced woman. Imagine traversing a crowded dance hall. A smile graces your features. A gentleman bows and you agree to a second dance. In that moment, glances narrow across the space. A competitor notices your enthusiasm. A chaperone observes your boldness. A jealous wife mutters behind her fan. Beauty intensifies every action, magnifies every particular. What might be ignored in another woman becomes proof against you. Historians still argue whether this dual standard was rooted in genuine moral apprehension or in the desire to restrict women's choices. Regardless, the impact was serious. Society divided women into two categories: respectable or ruined. A beautiful woman was constantly at risk of sliding into the latter, not due to her misdeeds, but because of how swiftly others chose to condemn her. Consider the severe label of the disgraced woman. It appears in periodicals, in sermons, in fiction. The phrase is deployed like a hot iron. Once applied, it is almost impossible to erase. And beauty makes the brand easier to sear onto your being. A plainer woman might survive a defamatory rumour by being overlooked. A beautiful woman is always noticed. Her face makes the narrative credible. Her allure the supposed proof of culpability. Think of the countless cautionary tales in popular print. The protagonist dazzles society with her appearance, but one slip sends her plunging into disgrace. A look misconstrued as an invitation, a letter intercepted, a whisper of impropriety. The story always ends the same way. She loses everything, while the man involved often suffers little or no consequences. These accounts are not merely invented. They mirror and cement the dangers faced by actual women in both social settings and back alleys. Now, picture being accused of impropriety. Perhaps you are seen conversing too long with a gentleman in a garden. Perhaps you receive a gift misconstrued as a token of forbidden affection. Almost immediately your reputation sours. Invitations cease to arrive. Acquaintances avoid your gaze when you pass. Suitors vanish as if they had never existed. Beauty has turned from an advantage to a weapon, cruelly severing your opportunities. Even charitable groups and institutions enforce the disgrace. Asylums and laundries for reformed women open their doors to those labelled fallen often holding them in harsher conditions than the supposed sins they committed warranted. The more attractive the woman, the faster society judges her. Her looks are portrayed as the very reason for her downfall. She enticed, she tempted, she erred. It is irrelevant whether the accusations are truthful. The narrative is enough. Consider the hypocrisy as well. Men who pursue women recklessly seldom meet the same fate. A gentleman's standing might be slightly damaged, but rarely destroyed. In fact, he may be applauded for his conquest, while the woman he leaves behind bears the full weight of the infamy. Beauty amplifies this disparity. A lovely woman's alleged transgression is viewed as evidence of corruption. A man's is seen as evidence of vitality. The unfairness is harsh and unrelenting. Correspondence from the period reveals the pervasive, quiet misery of women trapped by this system. One young woman writes of entirely avoiding public life after a rumour circulated about her closeness with a married man. Another admits she wished for less striking features, believing they might shield her from gossip. These voices speak softly across the years, but they disclose the same anxiety. Beauty was not safety, it was danger. At the core of this risk lies the intense focus on integrity. Integrity is intangible, yet society insists beauty makes it tangible. A woman too lovely is assumed to lack it, or to be constantly in peril of losing it. The attention of men becomes her obligation, the resentment of women her fault, the judgment of society her burden. She navigates a path thinner than a thread, knowing one mistake could define her forever. Imagine the isolation of living under such intense scrutiny. You offer a cautious smile, you speak reservedly, you supervise every movement. Yet you still cannot control how others interpret you. Beauty guarantees you are always observable, always vulnerable. A plain face might blend into the crowd, but you never can. And so you exist half in shadow, half in fear, enacting respectability with wearying exactness. Historians debate whether beauty truly ruined more lives or whether the accounts exaggerate the threat. Yet the fear itself is documented in personal writings, sermons, and literature. The dread was real. The whispered warnings were constant. Mothers advised daughters to guard their looks carefully, to never seem too forward, to never rely on admiration. Beauty demanded alertness, and alertness consumed their lives. And so, as the night deepens and the final candle flickers out, you lie awake, reviewing the day's events. Did you smile with too much enthusiasm? Did you speak too candidly? Did someone misinterpret your quick glance? Tomorrow may bring whispers you cannot quiet. Your beauty ensures they will spread rapidly and stick firmly. You fall asleep knowing that in this world, loveliness is not refuge but exposure, not defense but risk. The cruel paradox returns. Beauty raises you up only to position you nearer to the edge. The brighter the illumination, the sharper the shadows. And once branded a disgraced woman, there is no chance of recovery. Society has composed the finale before you have even fully lived the narrative. The city is loud with the noise of printing presses rumbling in basements and the cries of young men hawking the latest publications on street corners. Beauty has found a new platform. It is not the ballroom or the playhouse. It is the printed page. Painters once captured the radiance of faces for private ownership. Now photographers sell likenesses to anyone with spare change. A beautiful face becomes more than mere appreciation. It becomes a medium of exchange, and you comprehend that being too lovely in Victorian England means being converted into a product. Imagine entering a photography studio. The air faintly smells of chemicals and hot lights. A rigid chair sits in the middle of the space. You take a seat while the photographer adjusts your posture, fixes the angle of your chin, instructs you not to move. The procedure is time-consuming, the equipment cumbersome, yet the outcome will circulate far beyond your authority. Small photo cards and calling cards are collected, exchanged, displayed in photo albums. Beauty once belonged to mirrors. Now it belongs to strangers. Historians still argue whether photography liberated women by granting visibility or constrained them by magnifying scrutiny. In either case, the reality is clear. A beautiful woman finds her image spreading faster than gossip. Admirers value her photograph. Critics analyze it. Rivals covet it. Beauty ceases to be private and becomes merchandise. Consider the painters as well. A portrait by a popular artist is not just art, but promotion. The subject's beauty is refined, idealized, made permanent. Yet the canvas hangs in galleries where onlookers murmur about the curve of the lips, the sparkle in the eye. The woman herself may never hear the remarks, yet her reputation shifts regardless. Her beauty has been detached from her person and put on exhibition. Even newspapers participate in the commerce. Sketches of society women appear in illustrated sections, praising their attire, their features, their appeal. The press consumes beauty and produces slander. One day you are lauded for grace, the next, ridiculed for extravagance. The pattern is endless, and once beauty is public property, it can no longer be safeguarded. Imagine the discomfort of seeing your own face displayed in a storefront window. The image is intended to praise, yet you feel exposed. A stranger stares, lingers, smirks. Another buys the card, perhaps to admire, perhaps to mock. You are not present, yet you are judged. Your image has become both protector and target. The danger intensifies when business takes control. Vendors advertise hairpieces supposedly originating from beautiful women. Cosmetics companies claim their powders are used by society's beauties. Perfume bottles feature the likenesses of elegant models. Beauty becomes a pitch, an endorsement, an item for sale, and the women themselves often receive no compensation for it. Their faces generate wealth while their reputations become more fragile. Correspondence from the period reveals unease. One woman laments that her photograph was sold without her consent. Another complains that her image circulated in caricatures she never posed for. Beauty again proves hazardous, not because of flaws, but because of its very desirability. The more radiant the face, the more readily it is utilized. The more praised the features, the more mercilessly they are exploited. Consider, too, the collector's albums of photo cards filling sitting rooms. Men boast of owning the pictures of society's most charming women. The practice seems benign until you grasp the implications. Women are classified, exchanged, discussed like valuable stamps. Their looks are separated from their human reality. Their image is prized while their actual voice is stifled. You cannot govern what others do with your picture. Once it is released, it belongs to the world. And the world is rarely charitable. Even death cannot stop the transaction. Memorial cards feature the faces of beautiful women who have passed, preserved for admiration beyond the grave. The irony is pronounced. Beauty that brought suspicion in life is celebrated in death, but always commercialized, always sold, always controlled. Historians observe the conflict between appreciation and exploitation. Women sometimes sought prominence through portraits, hoping to secure a better social standing or marriage. Yet the same exposure often backfired. Once your beauty was public, you were more susceptible to resentment, gossip, and scandal. Your portrait could be lauded in one newspaper column and then attacked in the following one. The asset was never truly yours to control. Picture yourself going back to your residence after a session with a painter. The photographer assures you the images will draw praise. You scrutinize your mirrored reflection and contemplate what strangers will ultimately conclude. Will they perceive purity, vanity, or perhaps temptation? The final reading is never determined by you. Once captured, your charm speaks without your input, and the world decides its meaning without hesitation. Later that evening, you conceal the sample print in a drawer. Unable to endure its silent scrutiny, you turn out the oil lamp, realizing that your reproduced image may already be circulating through city avenues and crowded meeting places. Your physical appearance has been transformed into printer's ink and paper, bought and sold, passed between countless hands you will never recognize. Your features are no longer exclusively yours. They belong to commerce, to public gossip, and to the annals of time. The painful irony intensifies. Loveliness lifts you to the status of art, yet then diminishes your presence to mere promotional material. It grants you lasting fame in painted likenesses, all the while silencing your own ability to speak. It promises widespread appreciation, but delivers only public vulnerability. And within this Victorian landscape, where every quick assessment carries weighty disapproval, possessing excessive beauty is not a great victory, but a profound liability. The market item shines brightly, yet it serves as a restraining shackle. The roadway outside vibrates with the rhythmic sounds of coach wheels and horses' hooves. Yet deep within your private sense of self, there is a more piercing sensation, a persistent, unsettling awareness. Because being beautiful in Victorian England does not simply invite polite acclaim, it consistently draws unwanted attention. The pursuer. The more striking your natural features, the more radiant your overall presence, the greater your likelihood of attracting prospective partners, unfamiliar persons, or even stalkers, who perceive you not as an individual but as a target. Exceedingly beautiful. You are constantly observed, even during those times you yearn for peace. Envision taking a walk along a busy public walkway. Sunlight breaks through the colourful parasols. Gentlemen walk in pairs, exchanging views on current politics. Children weave in and out among the seating. Yet your every move is tracked by a figure who keeps back just a few paces. He makes a show of appreciating the formal gardens, but his focus remains locked on your progress. You grip your gloves more firmly. You are acutely aware that if you suddenly increase your speed, the judgmental whispers will begin. Did you notice the way she encouraged his advances? If you reduce your speed, he becomes more daring. Beauty traps you in a situation with no graceful way out. Historians continue to debate whether the contemporary Victorian society genuinely understood the risks women encountered or whether they chose to overlook them deliberately. Evidence gathered from private journals and official court records indicates that an admirer could quickly become a source of threat. Nevertheless, the responsibility for the danger consistently fell upon the women themselves. If something unfortunate occurred, society would inquire, what was she wearing? Which route did she take? Why was she smiling? Never did they ask, why did he follow her? Beauty became the justification utilized by those who preyed on others and the societal instrument wielded against the victim. Think about the deluge of unsolicited correspondence delivered to the home each day by the postal service. Attractive women received notes from men they had only briefly seen once on a bustling street corner or seated in a theatre box. Some of these letters pleaded for a scheduled meeting. Others announced a desperate, consuming affection. A few contained thinly veiled menace. The recipient was cornered. She could not write back without risking social disgrace. She could not voice a complaint without being accused of self-admiration. The accumulated letters, proof of attention she never desired and a threat she dared not speak of, simply kept mounting. Even within the supposed sanctuary of private reception rooms, charm attracted peril. Suitors would lean in too close, whispering flattering words that sounded more like proprietary claims. Acquaintances of the family would press for formal introductions. Relatives of associates would delay their departure after social events. Being attractive created an expectation that you must graciously accept every instance of notice. To reject anyone too sharply was considered ill-mannered. To accept attention too readily was to be accused of misleading men. There was no comfortable middle ground. Imagine the line of private carriages waiting after a musical performance in the evening. A man insists on escorting you to your conveyance, despite your never having requested his assistance. His hand grazes yours too frequently. His conversation is laced with a sense of entitlement. When you subtly pull away, he offers a condescending laugh as if you are merely playing a game. Your attractiveness has made him absolutely certain that your refusal is an invitation. Your distress is completely invisible to him. Because the general public teaches that physical appeal exists primarily to gratify others, your beauty once more proves to be not a defense but a hidden danger. Written fiction from this period also illuminates these specific hazards. Novels caution against dangerously obsessive suitors, of men who confuse simple admiration with full ownership. However, the initial plea is always understated. Stories often subtly shift the blame back to the female protagonist, suggesting that her very loveliness served to tempt her pursuer. Readers absorb the moral. A woman of striking beauty is forever accountable for the intensity of the desires she awakens, even if she never wished them into existence. The entire narrative functions as another form of restraint. Also consider the constant threat of physical violence. Legal documents detail cases of women attacked in public parks or near theatres, pursued precisely because they had been noticed and admired. Their physical appeal made them targets not only for romantic interest, but also for male aggression. Men who faced rejection felt fully entitled to strike out. Neighbours would click their tongues in disapproval but seldom offered any protection. Too often, the beautiful woman was compelled to endure both the injury and the resulting blame. Society offered sympathy, but failed to shield her. And yet, this same loveliness also drew less obvious exploiters, the men who hunted for financial gain. A wealthy individual might seek a plain woman for her large dowry, but he might seek a lovely one for the prestige she offered. Her physical charm became another form of wealth, one he intended to control completely. You might find yourself courted with lavish attention only to understand that you're valued solely as a decoration, not as an equal companion. Your beauty is the sought-after prize, and his vanity is the ultimate winner. The moment your natural radiance diminishes, his proclaimed devotion will also fade. At the conclusion of the day, you review the interactions of the last 24 hours. The prolonged stare at the marketplace, the insistent compliment offered at dinner, the unwanted escort outside the church building. Every single moment leaves its mark, a sharp reminder that your loveliness is not yours alone. It is claimed by every eye that lingers, every voice that presumes, every footstep that trails behind you. You feel perpetually pursued, though you have committed no offence. Historians still argue whether women writing at the time overstated these anxieties or whether society intentionally minimised them for its own comfort. The truth likely falls somewhere in the middle. The letters, the diaries, the legal files all reveal patterns that are too consistent to dismiss. Physical charm was not only a risk to one's reputation, it was a profound risk to one's personal safety. And yet the contradiction persisted. Women were instructed to appreciate their looks, to protect them, to publicly display them, and simultaneously were held accountable for the dangers they attracted. Picture yourself turning off the lamp and securely drawing the curtains, yet still sensing those imagined footsteps close behind. The danger may not be physically present tonight, but its dark presence remains. Beauty is the attractive quality society insisted you possess, and the heavy shackle that keeps you defenceless. The same attractive quality that earns you high praise also marks you as a target. You lie awake, knowing that in this rigid world, possessing great beauty means never feeling truly secure. The soft sound of rain falls against the window pane. Yet inside your private sleeping area, a different kind of turmoil is brewing. The assembly of small ceramic jars, glass bottles, and delicate powders arranged on the dressing surface. Cosmetics used in Victorian England promised fantastic results, yet dangerously concealed harm. The pursuit of attractiveness here is not only a social or ethical concern, but also a chemical one, and frequently life-threatening. To be extremely beautiful is to jeopardize not merely one's public standing, but one's physical health, because the fine powders and thick creams that grant a luminous appearance are frequently infused with toxic substances. Imagine the routine of getting ready. Your personal maid sets out the containers, one holding a dull white powder, another containing a liquid that imparts a subtle sheen. You lightly apply the powder across your face, meticulously blending it to conceal any darker spots or freckles. Immediately, your skin achieves a clear, porcelain-like radiance. Yet beneath the surface, the lead content slowly permeates the skin, acting as a slow poison. Slowly, you ingest it. A bottled concoction promoted widely as a miraculous beauty tonic, but it contains tiny arsenic wafers ingested by countless women desperately chasing that ideal, pale standard. The printed advertisement guarantees absolute harmlessness. The mirror offers a glimpse of future admiration, yet your internal systems bear the unacknowledged penalty. Historians continue to debate whether women completely understood the severity of the health risks. Some suggest genuine ignorance, others a conscious form of denial. Perhaps a great number were aware but judged the danger acceptable. After all, what practical alternative was there? Society insisted upon unblemished skin and pale facial colourings, yet any natural imperfections prompted suspicion. Too flushed, and you were considered lower class. Too many freckles, and you were deemed plain. Too much natural colour, and you were judged cheap. Physical appeal represented survival, and toxic substances became the required cost. Consider the unusual formulae documented in manuals of the era, a mixture of lead and vinegar applied directly to the face to smooth out lines, mercury-based salts to eliminate skin marks, belladonna eye drops to widen the pupils, creating a dreamy, vacant look. Each offered greater allure, each gradually eroded physical well-being. Lead severely harms the nervous system. Mercury leaves permanent skin scars. Arsenic weakens the body's constitution. Belladonna causes gradual loss of sight, yet the trend continued. The more impressive the resulting appearance, the greater the inherent risk. The very products intended to preserve one's beauty ultimately hastened its decline. Even men subtly participate in this custom. Hair tonics blended with questionable minerals, skin lotions to maintain a youthful luster. Yet society rarely subjects them to public ridicule. For women, the mockery is pointed and vicious. A mere rumour that she applies too much face powder is sufficient to label her conceited. A whisper of arsenic consumption deems her dangerously unstable. Beauty that is successfully maintained is criticised. Beauty that is neglected is ridiculed. There is no truly safe approach. The jar of cosmetic cream becomes both a potential rescue and a lethal trap. Picture the bustling stalls in the public marketplace where itinerant vendors aggressively sell their purported miracle remedies. They guarantee prolonged youth, extended life, and brilliant skin. Small glass bottles sparkle brightly beneath the gas lamps, and desperate women exchange money for a mere shred of optimism. You tightly hold one of these specific vials, its paper label ornate, its contents deliberately undisclosed. You question whether the liquid will truly refine your skin or actually cause its decay. You consume it regardless, because to enter the ballroom with a dull complexion feels far worse than the thought of future illness. The choice is unforgiving, but private correspondence from the time period reveals deep-seated fears. A young woman privately confesses she worries the powders are destroying her health but feels she cannot stop. Another admits she faints regularly and suspects the arsenic tablets, yet she continues because the flow of compliments bolsters her inner resolve. Beauty has evolved from a simple enhancement to an absolute dependency. The mirror transforms into both a comfort and a relentless judge. Every morning, you confront your reflection, wondering if today the glow will disappear or if the toxic effects will finally be visible. Occasional medical journals issue cautious alerts. Doctors document unusual rashes, fragile hair, and failing overall health, yet the general public ignores it. Powdered faces continue to fill high society gatherings. Photographs still necessitate a perfect appearance. Painters still depict pale, unblemished cheeks. Beauty is a form of currency, and currency demands risk. The explicit health warnings are dismissed as extreme exaggeration or disregarded entirely, because the alternative is social invisibility. Consider also the hypocrisy of the influential fashion publications. They severely scold women for excessive vanity, while simultaneously publishing pages of advertisements for these same dangerous powders. They praise genuine, natural looks while aggressively selling arsenic wafers. They advocate for moderation while featuring illustrations of impossibly perfect models. These inherent contradictions bind you more tightly than the restricting laces of a corset. You simply cannot win, yet you are forced to participate in the charade. Imagine once more the grand ballroom, brightly illuminated by sparkling crystal fixtures. You make your entrance, your skin glowing, flawlessly smooth like porcelain. The assembled crowd murmurs its approval. They softly whisper words of appreciation, yet one female rival subtly sneers. Too flawless. She must be using powders. Her judgmental words circulate quicker than the orchestra's music. Your attractiveness, instead of being a source of protection, becomes proof of wrongdoing. Even when you seem to succeed, you ultimately fail. The very powders that jeopardize your well-being still do not silence the underlying suspicion. Historians debate whether the preoccupation with harmful cosmetics was fueled by lack of knowledge, pure commercial incentive, or a deeper-seated need for women to control at least one aspect of their physical appeal. Perhaps a combination of all three. Nevertheless, the outcome remains undeniable. Victorian loveliness was frequently built upon a hidden foundation of toxins. The more praised a woman's face, the more likely it had been touched by dangerous chemicals. The more perfect the colouring, the greater the silent physical distress. At the end of the day, you use a mixture of vinegar and plain water to remove the powders. The mirror reveals the stark reality. A face that is pale yet profoundly exhausted, eyes showing dark circles, lips feeling dry. You gently touch your cheek and feel the subtle irritation left by the chemicals. You wonder exactly how many more years you can maintain this exhausting regimen. The flattering comments of the afternoon still echo in your memory, but so too does the slight hacking cough developing in your throat. You put out the oil lamp, understanding that tomorrow you will inevitably reach for those same dangerous powders. Because society leaves you no realistic alternative, beauty is once again proven to be a dangerous liability. It demands good health as the required payment. It exchanges years of life for a few fleeting moments of public approval. The containers on your dressing surface sparkle like valuable gems, but each one is a carefully constructed trap. To be overly beautiful is to inhale toxic fumes, offer a pleasant smile, and simply hope the mirror never truly exposes the ultimate cost. The thick fog drifts across the streets of London, swirling around the flickering streetlights like smoke rising from a burning, unpredictable inferno. You pull your wrap closer around yourself, but the cold sensation that settles on your shoulders does not originate from the weather. It comes from the chilling realization that too much public exposure is just as perilous as too little. In Victorian England, physical appeal is not only judged within high society events or private residences, it is also carefully scrutinized within the relentless, ever-churning gossip networks of the community. Being excessively visible can ruin a life as rapidly as being completely unknown can prevent opportunity. Beauty only truly flourishes within a precarious balance between concealment and full display. And taking one step past either boundary transforms admiration into outright condemnation. Think about the high social calendar. The formal invitations arrive by the dozen. Elaborate dinners, society dances, outdoor garden parties, and cultural lectures, each event serving as another platform where you must appear impeccably radiant, yet never seem too eager. Every public appearance fuels conversation. Your expensive dress is admired, your physical appearance is complimented, but very soon the quiet, insidious whispers begin. She attends far too many events. She enjoys the constant attention a little too much. She is actively courting the public's eye. The simple fact of being observed becomes taken as proof of excessive self-regard. Beauty amplified in the social sphere becomes automatically suspicious. Beauty that is too easily seen becomes a risk. Historians continue to debate whether Victorian gossip was more venomous in the major cities, where the chance of anonymity encouraged boldness, or in the smaller villages, where absolutely nothing went unobserved. Regardless, the central point remains clear. Women of noteworthy attractiveness were never truly safe from constant speculation. Overexposure meant too many dances, too many men seeking their attention, too many casual glances exchanged in the park. A woman who appeared too often in public risked being instantly labelled as immoral, regardless of her actual behaviour. Consider the daily newspaper columns. They thrive on endless repetition. Names are printed again and again, receiving praise one week, only to be harshly criticised the next. A recognised society beauty who shines too brightly at too many formal gatherings quickly finds herself characterised as superficial, irresponsible, and unnecessarily extravagant. Her very success becomes the cause of her downfall. The press craves a fresh story, and once sustained admiration becomes boring, it quickly shifts into public ridicule. Beauty transforms into a printed headline, initially brilliant, then completely absurd. Even the visual arts capture this same contradiction. Portraits of celebrated beauties are commissioned, publicly exhibited, and widely discussed. Yet once too many likenesses circulate, the initial impact fades. The woman who sat for the artist moves from being a universally admired muse to being an overexposed showpiece. Rival social circles quietly complain that she is everywhere, that her face no longer evokes profound wonder, but only boredom. A beauty who is too frequently seen ceases to feel special. She becomes perceived as ordinary. And within Victorian society, being seen as ordinary carries significant danger. Imagine yourself entering a large reception room filled entirely with familiar people. The praises arrive, but they carry a note of fatigue. You recognise the subtle shift. Those eyes which once rested on you with devotion now dart away, seeking newer faces. You maintain your composure, smiling outwardly, yet a deep anxiety settles within. The social period is finite. Attractiveness has an expiry hastened by too much exposure. The visibility itself, which initially promised influence, now threatens to dissolve your standing. Private letters from the era confirm this worry. Young women admit weariness from constant engagements, alongside a profound dread of remaining unseen. One confided that skipping a dance felt equivalent to disappearing entirely. Another felt that continuous attendance made her the target of sharp ridicule. The correct balance is unobtainable. Retreat invites obscurity. Presence risks saturation. Charm is perched precariously on a razor's edge with no stable ground. Consider the ensuing rivalries. Excessive exposure fuels animosity toward a woman. Applause that is too frequent invites immediate hostility. The resentful begin to circulate rumours. She is said to be desperate. She is accused of manipulation. She is claimed to flirt with every gentleman. The more she is seen, the more material she offers for criticism. A simple movement, when repeated across several events, is construed as evidence of her real nature. A laugh sounds piercing. A smile appears insincere. The gossip machinery turns faster than any textile mill, converting strands of loveliness into restrictive webs of scandal. Even inside one's own family, overexposure breeds conflict. Sisters find themselves competing, cousins are inevitably compared. A daughter's piety, if too obvious, might embarrass her mother, who fears it signals vanity. A brother grows concerned about her indiscreet behaviour. The very triumph of her appearance becomes a responsibility shared by everyone in the household. You cannot move discreetly without disturbing the entire structure of expectation and bitterness. Imagine, too, the sheer exhaustion. Maintaining a beautiful image demands endless preparation. Each social gathering requires another ordeal of dressing, styling, applying cosmetics, and careful performance. The body grows tired, the spirit feels depleted. Yet stepping away is not an option. To withdraw invites murmurs of disgrace. Perhaps she is unwell, perhaps she is ruined, so you persist. You enter rooms where the general admiration has turned stale, and you offer a smile, pretending not to notice the sighs of ennui. Historians still debate whether being seen too often genuinely destroyed reputations, or if the anxiety of it merely kept women compliant. Perhaps both possibilities hold true. The society's intense demand for novelty penalizes beauty just as the fashion industry discards old styles. What captivates in one season quickly becomes tedious in the next, and women held scant control over this inevitable cycle. They were encouraged to shine, but then faulted for shining for too long a period. Now picture the most painful irony. The very men who sought your attention eagerly upon your debut slowly begin to distance themselves. They whisper that you are too prevalent, too public, too overly familiar. The allure of novelty has vanished, replaced by a suspicion of calculated display. The marriage prospects that your beauty was meant to secure dwindle, not because you failed, but because you succeeded too completely. Your face, having become overly recognizable, transforms into a detriment rather than an advantage. Late at night, after the lights are out and the streets quiet down, you lie awake, reviewing your appearances. Should you attend the next dinner party? Should you send your regrets? Should you risk the renewed whispers? In either case, maintaining attractiveness is a constant calculation. Never a moment of rest, never inner quiet. You envy the plain woman who moves through the season without drawing notice. She may lack suitors, but she is spared the danger of exposure. You sigh, understanding again that in this setting, possessing too much beauty means being too conspicuous, and excessive visibility is a great peril. The strange dilemma repeats endlessly. Applause fades into suspicion. Triumph converts to mockery. Presence decays into tedious overexposure. And throughout it all, beauty remains less of a benefit than a heavy burden. The light meant to illuminate instead obscures. The attention that should elevate instead consumes. The mist outside thickens around the lamplight, but inside the parlour another fog swirls, the strong scent of new literary works, fresh newspapers, and quiet slander. For in Victorian society, beauty is not only experienced, it is imagined, woven into popular fiction, and portrayed in macabre artwork. The public eagerly consumes stories where beauty serves as a downfall with the same appetite they show for street gossip. The more striking a woman's features, the more easily she becomes a character in someone else's constructed story. Imagine scanning a cheap, sensational pamphlet by the light of a candle. The cover illustration shows a sickly heroine with eyes like deep shadows, her loveliness so radiant that it must hide some inner danger. Inside the tale, her charm is irrevocably linked to misfortune. A man is ruined, spellbound by her mere gaze. A hostile rival plans her demise. A curse looms over her, and by the final pages she is either dead or utterly disgraced. The meaning is painfully clear. Beauty leads directly to ruin, not because of what its possessor does, but because of the negative attributes others assign to it. Historians still argue whether these dark tales truly mirrored existing anxieties or if they were the cause of them. Some suggest they gave voice to society's discomfort with women who gained prominence. Others propose they taught readers to regard attractiveness with immediate suspicion. Regardless, the effect was undeniable. Every woman of remarkable looks lived under the looming influence of these narratives. The public expected her personal life to unfold like the chapters of a novel, full of temptation, distrust, and inevitable suffering. Consider the famous archetype of the lethal woman. She appears in fine art and literature as a stunning figure whose beauty destroys the men who adore her. The Victorians adapted her from ancient myths, but they made her more menacing. She is no longer just an exotic fantasy. She is a practical warning. A woman who is too lovely must be a hazard, and if that danger cannot be proven, it will surely be invented. Her beauty becomes a weapon against her, and her reputation its victim. Imagine sitting quietly at a formal discussion. The men are discussing a recent novel where the main character's beauty is described as being beyond nature. They nod gravely, agreeing that such women pose a threat to social order. You remain silent, though you realize their gazes have settled on you, just as their commentary condemns you without specific mention. Beauty has transitioned into myth, and that myth has become a prison. Even visual art reflects the dark imagination of the time. Painters depict women with cascading hair, their eyes cast towards dark corners, lips slightly parted as if whispering a secret. These images are lauded for their air of mystery, yet they also hint at concealed malice. Gallery visitors depart whispering that excessive attractiveness conceals a moral flaw. The artist's brush has converted admiration into a caution, and that caution applies to every real woman who resembles the painted subject. Consider also the influence of popular superstition. A strand of hair that is too shiny might be called enchanted. A look that is too penetrating is accused of casting dark spells. Though scientific progress continues, the dark imagination persists. Beauty is never just superficial. It is a symbol, a bad omen, a potential curse. You may offer a gentle smile, yet the narrative constructed by others insists you are tempting fate. You may live a very private life, yet the fictional tradition insists you are a tragic figure awaiting certain ruin. The dark stories often link beauty with finality, consumption. The wasting sickness is romanticized. A pale cheek radiating before death is celebrated as sublime. Readers sigh over heroines too lovely to survive. The boundary between art and everyday life becomes hazy. Society begins to believe that real women of great looks are fated for an early end. Their praise is infused with a morbid anticipation, as if to be too beautiful is to ensure a tragic conclusion to your life story. Imagine walking into a small bookshop and seeing your own likeness crudely drawn on a sensational cover. Not precisely you, but similar enough that rumours start. You are asked if you read the story, if you recognise yourself in the doomed protagonist. You politely laugh off the suggestion, but inwardly you feel the constraints tightening. The story is not your life, yet it determines your identity regardless. Private correspondence from women reveals their distress. One writes that admirers compare her to unfortunate heroines as if offering a compliment. Another admits she fears her beauty causes people to expect catastrophe. These personal words reveal the high cost of the public imagination. Beauty is not merely judged, it is narrated, transformed into an urban legend, until reality itself yields under the pressure. Historians debate whether the culture's dark fascination with beauty actively harmed women or simply amplified existing anxieties. Perhaps both effects occurred. The evidence indicates that popular fiction shaped how people perceived them. Readers carried the stories into social gatherings, into their gossip, and into their final opinions. A woman who was too beautiful could never simply be herself. She was a fabricated character, a symbol, a walking curse. At night, you put out the candle flame, but the images remain. Eyes hidden in shadow, lips painted bright crimson, beautiful heroines collapsing into ruin. You wonder if your neighbours are secretly picturing the same inevitable end for you. You question if your very appearance dictates the plot of your life. Beauty. It should represent liberation, but in this world it is a written story. And that story is consistently cruel. The dark imagination thrives because it converts admiration into pure fear and desire into eventual punishment. Beauty once again proves to be a double-edged power. It illuminates but also haunts its owner. It attracts attention but also invites condemnation. You sleep restlessly beneath the weight of invented stories that were never yours, yet cling to you like cobwebs. The night air feels heavy with damp fog, and the glare of the gas lamps streaks across the street as you step into the waiting carriage. Marriage is meant to be the safe harbour promised to every attractive young woman. The preachers declare it, the poets describe it as the ultimate prize, the novels paint it as destiny itself. Yet in Victorian society, marriage can become its own elaborate trap. The beauty that once attracted hopeful suitors now confines you within a luxurious prison. Husbands select beautiful wives as treasured possessions, and possessions are not meant to move freely. They are meant to be displayed, to be strictly guarded, and sometimes to be disciplined. Imagine the day of your wedding. Your dress feels heavy with delicate lace. Your veil drifts like fine mist down the church aisle. The assembled guests gaze at you. The music swells grandly, and for a fleeting moment you believe the fairy tale is true. Your beauty has guaranteed you a worthy match, a permanent home, a stable future. But when the door of your new residence closes, the reality sharpens quickly. Admiration quickly morphs into possessiveness, compliments into absolute control. The very beauty that secured the marriage now triggers envy, paranoia, and relentless observation. Historians continue to argue whether Victorian marriages provided women with essential protection or simply exchanged one set of constraints for another. Evidence found in personal letters and journals suggests both outcomes. Many women recorded feelings of devotion and genuine comfort, yet others wrote of husbands who distrusted them specifically because of their striking looks. A brief glance at another man, an innocent smile in a parlour, a passing compliment from a guest could instantly ignite dark, jealous accusations. You are too striking, they suggest, and so you must pose a threat. Attractiveness becomes guilt before any proof. Reflect on the constant lessons urging restraint. A husband might fault his wife for a dress that is too vivid, for her speech being too lively, for laughter that is too unrestrained. He claims other men notice her, insisting she must therefore quiet her presence. His envy is disguised as proper behaviour, but its essence is power. Your looks make you a captive to his lack of self-assurance. The plain woman may experience calm. The gorgeous woman lives under scrutiny. Picture a formal dinner, the table set perfectly, the lamps casting a warm light. Guests arrive and you offer a measured smile. A relative compliments your clothing. Your husband's gaze tightens. The conversation continues, yet anxiety coils subtly below the surface. Later, when alone, he criticizes you for welcoming attention. You feel confused. You did nothing wrong. Yet the charge persists. Attractiveness itself is seen as a deliberate challenge. The very feature that ensured marriage now turns into the source of their disagreement. Even the law supports this inequality. Wives forfeit rights to property, their distinctiveness absorbed by their partners. Beauty offers no protection from this reality. In fact, it often makes things harder because suspicion offers men another reason to strengthen their hold. Private writings describe husbands forbidding their wives from attending social events, restricting visits, ordering staff to report on their conduct. An appealing wife becomes an item to observe, not an equal companion. Fiction reflects this same pattern. Novels show possessive husbands, doubtful lovers, and women penalized for admiration they never invited. These stories are enjoyed as entertainment, but they also solidify expectations. Readers accept this notion. Yes, too much charm causes problems. Yes, a man must protect his spouse. Society transforms storytelling into instruction, and the constraint grows more severe. Consider as well the risk of physical harm. In certain homes, suspicion turns into violence. Court records hint at instances where men struck their wives, accusing them of cheating, offering no evidence beyond their sheer beauty. These women seldom received support. Neighbours muttered that an alluring face was destined to attract trouble. The injured party is once again blamed. Attractiveness is a tool used against her by the very person who once cherished it. Imagine lying awake in the expansive bedroom, the drapes heavy, the atmosphere thick with quiet. Your partner sleeps nearby, yet you feel isolated. His praise has become doubt, his affection dependent on your invisibility. You are afraid to speak too warmly, laugh too freely, or even move with excessive grace. The marriage that should have been a safe harbour has become another arena where your every movement is judged. Beauty once more turns into a trap. Historians wonder if possessiveness was genuinely worse for beautiful women or merely more noticeable. Perhaps both were true. The journals of less remarkable women speak of a calmness missing from those of celebrated beauties. Either way, the outcome is clear. The more admired the woman, the greater the restrictions placed on her. Marriage does not remove danger, it simply changes its location. Behind closed doors, even the wider community takes part. A too admired wife is discussed, her husband ridiculed as a fool. A too withdrawn wife is pitied or suspected of unhappiness. The pair cannot win. Beauty ensures their lives are a public spectacle. The husband guards his wife jealously. The wife shrinks under intense observation. The home becomes a stage, with reluctant performers and an unending audience. Now imagine, decades later, the bride, once dazzling, now older yet still showing signs of her beauty. She has spent years under suspicion, moving cautiously, speaking softly, tolerating his jealous criticisms. The admiration that once surrounded her has faded, but the suspicion lingers. The pattern of mistrust never vanishes. Her looks continue to haunt her, even as age changes her face. The confinement does not end, it only becomes quieter. At night, you close the curtains tightly and release a long breath. Beauty was supposed to be a gift, marriage a sanctuary. Instead, both have become limitations. The prize shines in the case, but the glass is locked. The praise that filled the wedding ceremony has warped into possession and fear. You drift into an unsettled sleep, understanding that in this world, excessive beauty is never freedom, even within the confines of marriage. The fireplace crackles softly, but its heat does little to ease the tension that fills the space. For behind closed doors, beauty becomes a fight. The husband who once admired your radiant features now inspects them with mistrust. Suspicion hides in every shadow and control sharpens with every look. To be too striking in Victorian marriage is not only to be praised, but to be doubted, sometimes even put at risk. Imagine a meal at home. The silverware gleams, the atmosphere is controlled. Staff move silently. A guest offers you a polite compliment. Your husband's expression hardens. The meal proceeds in silence. But later, in private, the dispute begins. He accuses you of flirting, though you only smiled. He insists you encouraged attention, though you remained proper. His suspicion wears the guise of morality. He claims to protect your honour, but what he really protects is his ego. Your beauty becomes an excuse for his anger. Analysts still debate whether possessiveness in Victorian marriages stemmed from a real fear of cheating or a broader anxiety about women's growing presence in society. Regardless, private writings, diaries, and legal records reveal a pattern. Beautiful wives endured doubt no matter their actions. The more celebrated a woman, the more likely her husband treated her as property. Her charm was proof of her worth, yet also reason for his dominance. Consider the techniques of monitoring. Staff instructed to report on your behaviour, friends encouraged to watch you at social calls, husbands questioning every outing, every letter, every slight sign of feeling. You live as if perpetually on trial, every action calculated, every statement weighed. Your looks intensify the scrutiny. No man would watch a plain wife so closely. But you, with your dazzling appearance, must be contained, as though the world is waiting to steal you away. Sometimes suspicion escalates into physical abuse. Legal records mention women who were hit, locked in rooms, forbidden from receiving visitors under the pretense of safeguarding reputation. The contradiction is brutal. The husband blames the beauty itself, as though your face provoked his fury. Neighbours whisper sympathy, but also agreement. After all, they say, such women attract misfortune. The victim is again deemed the offender. Imagine the isolation as you step back. You decline invitations to social events, speak less, laugh softly, hoping to ease his suspicion. Yet the withdrawal fuels his doubt. Why refuse the dance unless you are hiding something? Why speak less unless you keep secrets? The restriction tightens. No action clears your name. No quietness silences the doubt. Beauty guarantees that suspicion lives forever. Fiction echoes this pain. Authors describe possessive husbands whose wives suffer constantly, often penalised for an allure they never intended to wield. Readers consume these narratives as drama, but they also absorb the lesson. An attractive wife is a threat to herself, to her marriage, to the community. Better that she is controlled than trusted. Thus fiction becomes justification, and the cage grows stronger. Letters from women reveal the heavy price. One writes of feeling like a songbird in a gilded cage, admired by everyone, yet never free. Another admits her husband locked away her fine dresses, fearing they attracted too much notice. She describes looking in the mirror and wishing for simpler features, believing plainness might purchase peace. These voices echo across time, evidence that beauty, once a triumph, becomes a fetter. Even the medical profession contributes. Physicians repeat the husband's claims, asserting that outbursts of jealousy are normal reactions to one's wife being too appealing, they claim. Men are instinctively driven to protect what others desire. These ideas turn mistreatment into logic, and logic into justification. The woman's health deteriorates under the pressure, yet she receives no understanding. Her beauty is blamed one more time. Imagine standing at the window, the drapes firmly closed. You watch the carriages pass, wishing intensely to go outside. Yet you know freedom invites further strife, more argument. A simple greeting from a neighbour could start an accusation. A brief trip for an errand could ignite suspicion. You exist within barriers, not of stone, but of mistrust. Beauty has turned home into a jail and marriage into a sentence. Historians discuss whether some women found ways to convert admiration into influence. Perhaps a few succeeded, using their appeal to negotiate some power. Yet for most, the danger outweighed any benefit. Control overshadowed every potential gain. The risk was constant, the toll unyielding. Beauty offered no protection, only sharper chains. Consider also the children in such homes. They mature watching the strain, learning that attractiveness is both a benefit and a problem. Daughters are warned to be modest, sons taught to be fiercely protective. The pattern repeats. The fear of beauty is passed down like an inheritance, shaping new generations into the same moulds. At night, you let down your hair, allowing it to fall over your shoulders. You see in the mirror the features that once drew praise, now weighed down with sadness. You whisper that you never requested such charm, never sought such constraints. Yet tomorrow the suspicion will reappear, as reliably as the sunrise. The cycle will not break. The trap is sealed. The cruel contradiction. Beauty brought marriage, but marriage brought mistrust. Beauty drew praise, but praise cultivated jealousy. Beauty promised devotion, but delivered dominance. The loveliness you did not choose has become a weapon used against you. And in the quiet of the night, you grasp the truth. To be too appealing in this world is not to live celebrated, but to live accused. The printing presses thunder far away, shaking the air through the night as if the city itself cannot rest. The Victorian media craves stories, and beauty provides endless material. The same features that once drew praise in drawing rooms now find themselves recorded in columns, sketched into unflattering images, and analysed in gossip papers. Too beautiful, and you are never safe from the judgment of the printed word. For the press acts not only as a reflection but as a judge, determining who succeeds and who fails. Imagine opening a morning newspaper. The main section discusses politics, but the social column hums with familiar names, yours among them. The author praises your gown at last night's event, but subtly mentions how long you danced with a certain gentleman. The words seem harmless, yet every reader interprets them differently. Some smile, others sneer. A single sentence alters your reputation more effectively than anything you actually said or did. Historians still debate whether Victorian journalism freed women by giving them a public face or harmed them by exploiting their privacy. Diaries suggest both effects. Some women enjoyed being mentioned, viewing it as proof of influence. Others dreaded every appearance, knowing that praise could turn into scandal overnight. Beauty made you irresistible to editors, always needing to sell more copies. An ordinary face went unnoticed. A stunning one became a headline. Consider the exaggerated drawings published in illustrated magazines. They distort your eyes, your hair, your clothing, turning sophistication into ridicule. The accompanying text is harsh, yet people laugh. The caricature spreads faster than the facts, reducing your beauty to a joke and your standing to mere entertainment. The more attractive the woman, the harsher the mockery. The press consumes admiration and produces scorn. Imagine the gossip sections hinting at a scandal. Whether or not it is real matters little. A pretty woman seen walking without an escort becomes a mystery. A simple smile at the opera becomes a serious flirtation. A letter received becomes evidence. The writers use clever language, intentionally vague, yet heavy with meaning. Readers consume it eagerly, filling in the blanks with their own ideas. Your beauty becomes the reason for speculation. Your reputation becomes currency for their business. Letters from that era show the frustration. One woman writes that she dreaded every morning paper, fearing what falsehoods might be published. Another confesses that she smiled politely at events only to have her expression twisted into proof of vanity. The press does not simply report, it invents a narrative. Beauty, once a high honour, becomes a target for stories created without your input. Consider also the double standard. Men mentioned in social pages are praised for their charm, cleverness, or boldness. Women praised for their looks are simultaneously accused of being vain. The very language used carries a bias. Each sentence shapes public opinion, and public opinion solidifies quickly. A man's reputation may recover. A woman's, once damaged, may never be restored. Even serious literature plays a part. Critics describe attractive actresses or social figures with subtle disdain, dismissing their talent because of their appearance. Too pretty, they say, to be taken seriously, too admired to be respectable. Reviewers turn beauty into a liability, and the public follows suit. Their comments echo through homes and cities, influencing judgments of people who never met you. Imagine the isolation of entering a room, knowing strangers have read about you before meeting you. Their smiles contain assumptions, their glances hold fixed opinions. The press has already defined you, and you cannot erase the impression. You perform against a reputation you did not create. Trapped by stories invented by others, beauty amplifies the confinement, guaranteeing your story travels farther than you can ever hope to correct. Historians debate whether women willingly courted public attention or were dragged into it against their wishes. Perhaps a mix of both. Some used the columns to gain status, others avoided them entirely. Yet the consistent theme remains. Once beauty met the printing press, all control was completely lost. The press celebrated and condemned with equal speed, leaving women susceptible to turbulence they could not manage. Consider the cruelty of anonymity. Editors sometimes describe attractive women without naming them, hinting just enough for readers to guess. The uncertainty sparks widespread talk. Entire social circles speculate, linking names to descriptions until rumour becomes solidified fact. Even when you are not named, you are accused. Even when you remain quiet, you are the subject of conversation. At night, you fold the newspaper away, but the words remain. You review every phrase, every insinuation, wondering who believes what. Who now views you as vain? Who as a temptation? Who as a simpleton? You never asked for this spotlight, yet your face powers columns. Your name increases sales. The press is ravenous, and your beauty is its bounty. The cruel contradiction returns. Admiration turns into mockery, visibility into exposure, fame into scandal. Beauty becomes a headline, not for what you accomplished, but for your mere existence, and once ink is spilled, it cannot be contained. The press has spoken, and society considers the judgment final. The empire extends widely across the oceans, its steamships transporting goods, its flags waving over distant territories. And yet, even within comfortable sitting rooms far from those lands, the influence of empire is apparent. Standards of beauty are not created in isolation. They are woven from conquest, commerce, and the perspective of those in power. In Victorian England, beauty is interwoven with colonial ideals. Non-European features are quietly admired, publicly distrusted, and depicted in art with a troubled fascination. Too appealing in the wrong way, and you are no longer simply celebrated. You are categorized as strange, a threatening outsider. Imagine a gathering where imported silks gleam under the gaslights and tea from India steams in delicate cups. A woman with a darker skin tone, perhaps from Mediterranean ancestry or a colonial background, enters the room. Her beauty is undeniable, yet the attention she receives is cautious. Some men murmur about her striking appeal, others quietly express suspicion. Her face becomes a platform for discussions about heritage, social rank, and the empire. She is both admired and set apart simultaneously. Historians still debate whether colonial beauty standards were rooted in genuine curiosity or methods of dominance. Many records suggest both. Different types of beauty were celebrated in verse and painting, yet in real life it was viewed as a danger. A woman who was too lovely but perceived as foreign could never fully belong. She was referred to as a rare gem, praised for her brilliance but kept separate, never fully trusted. Consider the artwork of so-called Oriental beauties. Artists draped models in costly fabrics, positioned them with exotic scents and jewels. They created fanciful images, eagerly consumed in Britain. Yet these depictions served not to praise the women themselves. Their purpose was to celebrate dominion. The empire claimed territories, and it also asserted control over faces. Attractiveness was redefined as evidence of conquest, and actual women who shared features with these imagined figures suffered the consequences. Their daily existence was burdened by generalizations, their choices limited by the expectations others imposed. Think of walking through the London streets where advertisements adopted foreign themes. A soap manufacturer printed pictures of dark-eyed women to market hygiene, and a tobacco company utilized dusky complexions to suggest sophistication. Yet those same women were ridiculed if they appeared in public. If they were seen as too alluring in an exotic style, they were suspected of being immoral and charged with being tempting. Their image helped sell merchandise, but their actual presence drew ill remarks. Even among England's own social strata, colonial concepts changed how people viewed things. An Irish woman with bright red hair was idealized in poetry, but faced distrust in political discussions. A Scottish woman with strong features was called honourable but also obstinate. A woman of Caribbean or Indian descent residing in Britain might be admired for her poise, yet set aside because of her background. Attractiveness once more became a reason to separate people as much as to bring them together. Consider, as well, the position of house staff. Many wealthy homes hired nurses, tutors, or personal aides from the colonies. Their presence was both a sign of wealth and a source of speculation. A surprisingly lovely attendant from overseas might be commended for her grace, yet never granted true equality. The lady of the house might become resentful. The neighbours might grow wary. The very traits admired in fine art became threatening in real life. Personal accounts mention staff being let go, not for poor work, but for attracting too much notice. There looks a problem in a society unwilling to balance admiration with full acceptance. Fiction mirrored this tension. Novels portrayed non-English women as mysterious, captivating, and risky. The familiar type of the foreign seductress flourished. She charmed men, led them astray, and sometimes met an unfortunate fate. Readers absorbed the message that beauty not conforming to English standards was hazardous. The narrative served to justify unfairness, presenting it as proper morality. Imagine the solitude of a woman caught within this contradiction. She could not change her features, yet she had to live beneath a scrutiny that wavered between fascination and dread. She might be celebrated in verses, yet avoided at social teas. She might inspire paintings, yet never receive invitations. Her beauty valued, yet never trusted. Experts debate whether such women used this attention to establish areas of influence. Some evidence suggests they did, swaying social gatherings, even marital matches. Yet the dangers were always present. Praise could instantly become an accusation. The colonial perspective offered no certainty, only unstable ground. Too much beauty in a foreign form could destroy a reputation quicker than any wrongdoing. Even science contributed to this bias. Anthropologists of the era sketched faces, measured skulls, and ranked beauty into hierarchies, placing Anglo-Saxon characteristics at the highest level. Everything else was appreciated with caution, but always labelled as inferior. These classifications transformed appreciation into control, making faces into statistics used to excuse dominance. A woman too lovely, yet too unlike the norm, became a point of debate, not a person deserving of respect. Imagine the exhaustion of living under such a constant watch. You adjusted your dress, chose plainer shades, lowered your gaze to avoid attention, yet whispers still followed. Her looks are unnatural. Her charm is dangerous. You could not succeed because the very empire that utilized your appearance refused to grant you belonging. At night, you sat by the light, reading a story where a main female character with your features was described as miserable, doomed. You shut the book with a deep sigh, knowing readers believed the narrative. And the next day, when you walked again through crowded streets, that same narrative would be projected onto your person without your permission. The harsh dilemma deepened. Beauty, linked to the empire, became a means of attraction and a weapon for exclusion. Praised in images, condemned in person, consumed in art, dismissed in reality. To be too beautiful and too foreign was to live as a continuous inconsistency, trapped between desire and rejection, never fully free, never entirely secure. The streets became quiet as midnight chimes sounded, yet the low talk did not cease, for it was carried not by the breeze but by perception. In Victorian England, the idea of the dangerous woman wound through art, literature, and society chatter like smoke from a lantern. It was a figure both feared and adored, a woman whose appeal was depicted as a weapon, whose charm was equated with misconduct. If you were too attractive, society began to force you into this narrative, regardless of your personal behaviour. Imagine a drawing room full of gentlemen discussing the latest serialized fiction. The female lead was described as perilously attractive. Her look said to weaken the strongest man, her smile compared to a snake's coil. They agreed seriously, convinced that such women existed outside of books. Their eyes drifted towards you, even though you had said nothing. Their judgment was already passed. Beauty itself was proof of risk. The dangerous woman was not just a fictional character, she was a charge. Historians still argue whether this stereotype arose from a true fear of female independence or from literary trends. The evidence suggests both reasons. As women became more visible through social gatherings, theatre, charitable work, and even political involvement, male concern increased. Stories turned their public presence into a threat. The more attractive a woman, the simpler it was to claim she possessed unnatural sway. Seduction became a transgression. Beauty turned into a liability. A reputation became as fragile as thin glass. Consider the artwork of that time. Paintings where women were shown reclining with snakes or adorned with exotic blooms. Their faces glowing, their poses relaxed. Their beauty was presented not as a virtue, but as a danger. The onlookers murmured appreciation, yet they left convinced that women of such magnetism must be dangerous. They carried these suspicions into their daily lives. The art exhibition became a courtroom where judgment was passed on every lovely face encountered later. Imagine being complimented for your sophistication at one dinner and accused of manipulation at the next. A flattering remark from an important man could quickly be twisted into rumour. She trapped him. She charmed him. She is a temptress, a schemer, a destroyer of goodness. You only smiled, yet society insisted your beauty was a scheme against men themselves. The dangerous woman myth provided the framework, and you were forced into the part. Even judicial cases showed this prejudice. Newspapers described appealing women accused of minor crimes or indiscretion with language dripping with suspicion. Her appearance was mentioned more often than her alleged offence. The hidden message was obvious. Beauty itself made guilt seem plausible. The court of public opinion convicted faster than any magistrate. The myth of the dangerous beauty fueled the outcome. Correspondence from the time revealed how women adopted these criticisms. One person lamented that her every interaction with men was questioned by women who saw her as a competitor. Another confessed she avoided speaking entirely, afraid of being labelled as manipulative. The myth silenced as effectively as physical restraints, yet society insisted it was reality. A woman too lovely must be planning something. Literature solidified the stereotype. Gothic novels entertained readers with female leads whose attractiveness ruined kingdoms. Detective stories hinted at criminals whose faces deceived before they struck. Even poetry spoke of misleading lips and eyes that betrayed. Readers absorbed these stories until truth and fiction blurred together. Women of remarkable appearance were treated like characters, not individuals, admired but never trusted. Imagine the difficulty of walking into a room where eyes assessed not just your clothing, but your assumed motives. Each look became a performance, every comment interpreted as a maneuver. If you were kind, you were perceived as crafty. If you were quiet, you were seen as calculating. If you were confident, you were viewed as predatory. The myth offered no escape. Beauty ensured you were trapped in a narrative you did not write. Historians debate whether the dangerous woman archetype empowered women by giving them an air of mystery or disempowered them by associating beauty with wrongdoing. Perhaps it achieved both. Some women leaned into the myth, using their allure to gain some influence, yet most bore the weight of suspicion that limited their freedom, damaged their name, and justified control. The myth gave society a reason to mistrust and punish without proof. Consider too the hypocrisy. Men celebrated their own conquests, boasted of seduction, yet denounced women accused of the same behavior. They created the stereotype of the dangerous beauty while gaining from the narrative themselves. The dangerous woman was blamed for faults men committed, praised for power she never held. The constraint was created by fiction and clamped down on real lives. Imagine lying awake in the quiet hours, revisiting every glance, every compliment, wondering who would distort it into an accusation. The next day, you sighed, knowing that the myth followed you more closely than any admirer. It walked beside you at social events, sat opposite you at meals, and lurked in every news column. The dangerous woman was a phantom you could not send away, and a label you could not shed. And so the harsh dilemma sharpened. Beauty should be a distinction, yet it became a liability. The more radiant your face, the more society insisted you wielded harmful power. The more admired your presence, the faster suspicion grew in this environment. Being too attractive meant living as a myth to be feared, envied, and penalized for stories others created. The streets outside echoed with the noise of carriages, yet inside your home the stillness was more profound than concrete. For beauty did not only create suspicion from men, it also isolated you from other women. Too attractive and you were set apart, admired from a distance, but seldom trusted. Too dazzling, and friendships faded into jealousy. Too striking, and you found yourself wearing a solitary distinction, a queen without allies. Imagine entering a gathering of women for afternoon tea. The silver teapots gleamed, the small cakes were neatly arranged on china plates. At first there were smiles, polite salutations, the rustle of gowns. Yet as conversation continued, you noticed the separation forming. They asked fewer questions. They spoke softly among themselves. When you approached their group, the discussion abruptly changed direction. You felt the barrier, unseen but firm. Your beauty had preceded you into the room and constructed it. Historians still discuss whether this isolation stemmed from innate rivalry or from the social structure that forced women to compete against each other. Personal writings suggest both were at play. Some women admitted to envying their acquaintances. Others confessed to withdrawing out of fear of being the subject of gossip. Regardless, the result was solitude. An attractive woman was seen as a rival first, a confidant second. Her friendships, delicate as lace, were too easily damaged. Consider the intensity of jealousy. A competitor might compliment your gown only to criticize it later. She might praise your skin tone while implying it must be from makeup. A single laugh with her husband became justification for months of coldness. The friendships you desired collapsed under the weight of suspicion. And because you were beautiful, the blame fell on you, not the resentment that surrounded you. Imagine receiving no invitations while your plainer cousin attended without restriction. Your presence was considered disruptive, your absence safer. You were placed on a platform. But platforms were built for viewing, not for companionship. You observed social gatherings from afar, longing for the laughter that excluded you. The admiration of strangers felt empty when weighed against the lack of true friends. Even within families, beauty could carve out isolation. Sisters became resentful. Cousins compared constantly. A mother might scold you more harshly, afraid others would accuse her of allowing your charms to go unchecked. Aunts whispered that you must be carefully monitored, lest you bring disgrace. The household became a setting of unspoken rivalries, where your looks rather than your actions created separation. Literature of the time reinforced this pattern. Attractive heroines were often depicted as lonely, envied by women, and mistrusted by men. Their beauty was framed as both an honour and a restriction. Readers accepted the image as truth, and real women lived within its shadow. You became a character in a narrative you never authored, forced into roles of temptress, competitor, or tragic figure, never permitted to be simply a friendly person. Imagine sharing your troubles with another woman. She nodded politely, yet later repeated your words with a change that distorted them. The more attractive you were, the more your honesty was doubted, your sadness interpreted as manipulation, your modesty as deception. Loneliness grew not from a lack of people around you, but from a lack of genuine belief. No one saw you clearly. They saw only the impression created by your appearance. Historians note the paradox that beauty, celebrated in art for fostering harmony, often led to division in actual life. Paintings of groups of women showed elegant unity, yet in drawing rooms and homes, unity broke down under the pressure of envy. A society founded on competition for marriage and social standing ensured that beauty became a competitive tool, not a connection. The outcome was predictable, isolation disguised as appreciation. Consider the events you did attend. The looks lingered, the compliments were plentiful, yet conversations felt forced. You laughed, but the sound felt hollow. Friends gravitated toward less threatening groups. The men approached too readily, the women retreated too quickly. You were surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. The distinction of beauty rested on your head, heavy and cold. At night you sat by the window, the lights burning dimly. You replayed the smiles that did not reach the eyes, the discussions that ended too soon. You whispered to yourself that perhaps less attractive looks would allow for truer companionship. You yearned for a friend who saw beyond the surface, yet wondered if such a friendship could exist in this world where beauty was always questioned. And so, the harsh dilemma intensified once more. Beauty granted visibility, but stole true connection. It drew attention, but pushed away affection. It gave you admiration, yet isolated you in suspicion. You drifted into restless sleep, wearing the solitary distinction, unnoticed by all, yet heavy on your spirit. The lights burned low and the year crept toward its conclusion. Yet the quiet talk of change began to stir. Within social parlours and educational spaces, the long cloud of suspicion clinging to attractiveness finally started to meet resistance. A new voice emerged among activists, writers and scholars, questioning whether the limitations placed on women's appearance should remain so rigid. The opposition to the excessive focus on beauty grew slowly, carefully, but its presence offered a hint of optimism. Imagine a gathering in an unpretentious hall. Women sat on simple chairs, listening to a speaker discuss learning, rights, voting, and independence. The speaker did not praise beauty, she barely mentioned it. Instead, she argued for intelligence, for opportunity, for respect. The audience listened intently. Some nodded, others showed disapproval. But in that moment, you felt a change. Attractiveness was no longer the single measure of worth. Reforms suggested a different option. Historians still debate whether the late Victorian reform movement truly transformed lives or simply planted ideas for the future. Yet evidence indicates that attitudes did begin to shift. Articles appeared in journals criticising unsafe cosmetics, mocking extreme corsetry and defending women's right to comfort. Letters circulated praising women of intellect as much as those of charm. The balance was far from equal, but fractures appeared in the barrier that had long imprisoned beauty. Consider the health advocates. They warned against arsenic wafers and lead-based face powders. They published leaflets promoting natural looks and fresh air. They criticised the culture of fainting and encouraged physical activity. The message was revolutionary for the time. Beauty did not have to involve suffering. Some women adopted these notions, taking walks in parks, loosening corsets at home, trying out simpler gowns. The quiet talk of defiance spread subtly, but determinedly. Imagine entering a social gathering where reformers mixed together. The atmosphere was filled not with perfume and rivalry, but with discussion and resolve. One woman advocated for the right to own property, another for better working conditions. Beauty was still present, of course, but it was secondary, not the main focus. For a moment you felt the pressure ease. You were not defined by your face. You were part of a discussion that valued your mind. The feeling was exhilarating, freeing. Even literature began to evolve. New female leads appeared in novels. Smart, capable, resolute. Their attractiveness was noted, but not essential. Their value lay in their actions, not their looks. The audience assimilates these chronicles gradually. Though society pushes back, the foundational ideas take root. A multitude of young women start to realize they could potentially be more than mere decorative figures. Scholars question if this resistance was truly widespread or mainly confined to academic circles. Yet, even within sophisticated gatherings, conversations become more daring. Activists criticize the scandal sheets. Satirical drawings expose the double standards. Every minute advance undermines the constraints placed upon female appearance. Even clothing trends move toward functionality. Petticoats diminish, skirts tighten, and athletic wear for women starts to appear. The overall shape begins to permit movement. Reflect on the rise of photography, utilized not just for glamour, but for social progress. Images of reformers circulate, showing solemn expressions, simple attire, emphasizing resolve over charm. The public encounters a new type of woman, one defined by her convictions, not her hairstyle and corsets. Attractiveness does not vanish, but it loses its absolute control. For the first time, the narrative broadens. Picture yourself in this moment. You enter a room, and for once, people do not only evaluate your dress, they seek your perspective. They challenge your concepts. You speak hesitantly at first, then with increasing assurance. The bonds of doubt loosen little by little. You understand that physical appeal may no longer be your entire identity. You might create your own destiny. Naturally, opposition persists. Many deride the progressives, calling them unwomanly, unattractive, threats to convention. Periodicals insinuate that plain women demand equality because they lack good looks. The entrenched biases hold on tightly. Still, the very presence of opposition proves change is taking hold. Beauty is no longer an unchallenged authority. It faces rivals, intellect, autonomy, unity. Personal correspondence reveals this transition. One young lady writes proudly that she joined a bicycle club, defying expectations. Another recounts declining heavy makeup, choosing wellness instead. These expressions are minor but meaningful. They imply a future where attractiveness is a choice, not a liability, just one characteristic among many. Reform expands slowly but anchors itself firmly. At night you contemplate these developments. The world has not transformed overnight. The hazards of being too beautiful remain tangible. Yet for the first time you sense potential, a route leading away from suspicion toward emancipation. The sound of progress echoes faintly but consistently. Appearance may always involve risks, but it does not have to be the sole measure of value. The harsh conflict softens slightly. Beauty remains respected, but its influence wanes. Its restraints show flaws. Its dominion wavers. You fall asleep with a delicate hope that tomorrow the quiet calls for change will amplify until they become a harmony, powerful enough to silence distrust. The season fades, and the interior lights flicker against windows touched by frost. Yet the account of beauty and risk does not conclude here. It remains present in the quiet breathing of drawing rooms, in the print of newspapers, in the sighs of women who question whether admiration is a benefit or a liability. Even as change is activated and styles evolve, the suspicion persists. Beauty continues to be judged like money, its worth debated, its dangers whispered about. Attractiveness carries a heritage, and that heritage extends far beyond the moment. Victorian era. Imagine walking again through a populated gathering. The chandeliers sparkle, the music plays softly, and the gowns shimmer with vibrant colour. You smile politely, greeting acquaintances, yet beneath the surface, you feel the same strain. The rumours are quieter, perhaps more concealed, but still noticeable. She is too lovely, she must be self-obsessed, she is too praised, she must be dangerous. The activists have spoken, the doctors have backed away from harmful substances, the clothing has become less restrictive, yet the restraint is not removed, only relaxed. Historians still argue whether the late Victorian period truly changed or simply masked its anxieties. Personal journals suggest the latter. Many women document ongoing discomfort, lingering resentment, persistent competition. The mandates might yield, but their underlying sentiment remains. Beauty remains a contradiction, commended and penalised in equal measure. Too lovely, and you are never secure, never liberated. Consider the tradition carried into the next century. Glossy magazines replace the gossip sheets, yet continue to promote unreachable ideals. Photographs replace the caricatures, yet continue to analyse features. Cinema portrays female protagonists whose good looks bring both acclaim and disaster. The Victorian anxiety evolves but never disappears. The legend of threatening beauty continues, a shadow following through decades. Imagine yourself years ahead, older yet still distinguished by the charm once celebrated, now softened by the passing of time. You stroll through parks remembering the whispers that pursued you throughout youth, the jealousy of female friends, the possessiveness of husbands, the skepticism of strangers. You endured, yet you carry internal, lasting scars. You contemplate whether your appearance brought more pleasure or sadness, whether it was a blessing or a misfortune. Perhaps it was both. Perhaps it always is. Even in old age. Society comments, they observe how remarkably preserved you are, how stunning your eyes remain. Yet the praise still holds an edge, as if waiting for your complete decline. The doubt has not expired, only quieted. Attractiveness, even when subdued, never escapes evaluation. Literature mirrors this continuity. New female characters appear stronger, more autonomous, yet still described primarily by their appearance. Stories still warn of seductresses, still associate charm with peril. The dramatic imagination endures, transformed but recognizable. Historians debate whether women truly escaped the confinement or merely disguised its framework. Either way, the inheritance is undeniable. Beauty remains a problematic attribute. Imagine now addressing younger women, recounting the past. You gently advise them not to mistake admiration for security, not to believe that acclaim comes without a cost. They listen intently, some doubting, some acknowledging with understanding. For even in their reality, echoes persist. Compliments still hide suspicion. Appreciation still carries envy. The legacy of Victorian apprehension about beauty still whispers. At night, you extinguish the light and reflect on the extensive journey from the drawing room where every smile was scrutinized, to the stage where performers navigated applause and condemnation, from the medical offices where doctors pathologized appeal to the dance halls where husbands grew suspicious, from the rumour mills that converted good looks into scandal, to the colonial images that objectified and excluded, from rivalry among women to distrust among men, to the gradual reform that questioned yet never eliminated the constraints. All of it points to one truth. Beauty, too radiant, too flawless, too conspicuous, is never unrestricted. The harsh irony persists. Beauty elevates you, yet separates you. It grants access, yet restricts it. It promises influence, yet invites subjugation. And though centuries change, styles fade, and improvements emerge, suspicion holds fast. Too lovely remains too hazardous. You close your eyes, allowing the visuals to recede. The light fixtures, the cosmetics, the tight garments, the rumours dissolve into a blur. You inhale deeply, and for once you envision a world where beauty is neither burden nor distinction, but simple reality, admired without misgiving, experienced without restrictions. Perhaps that world will someday exist. For now, the narrative settles here, in the momentary gleam of Victorian gaslight, the resonance of footsteps in lengthy halls, the whispers of resentment and longing that shaped lives long ago. The night grows calmer now, the lights fading into memory, and the expansive passages of Victorian drawing rooms dissolving like mist. You have travelled through a world where beauty dazzled yet endangered, where every glance was both a distinction and a restraint, and you have borne its weight moment by moment through each shaded area. But here, as the story concludes, you can finally release it. Let the tight garments loosen in your mind. Let the gossip fade into quiet. Let the intense gazes vanish entirely. Breathe slowly and feel the tension leave your shoulders. Inhale cool, serene air, as if you are standing in an evening garden, the last sunlight spilling across flowers, moisture still clinging to the petals. The judgment of onlookers is distant now. The whispers of skepticism diminish into the silence of twilight. The only sound is your own gentle breath, steady, peaceful, like waves rolling softly onto a beach. Allow yourself to visualize a looking glass. Not one filled with severe scrutiny or anxious anticipation, but a tranquil water surface where your reflection appears at rest. You are not a subject, not a narrative, not a representation. Simply yourself relaxing, breathing, drifting. Beauty no longer carries significance. It simply is. Light dances across the water and resolves into stillness. The rhythm of your heart slows, matching the cadence of words as they lengthen and soften, each phrase a little calmer, each image a little more peaceful. You are secure now. No accusations, no envy, no watchful eyes remain. The extensive tale of Victorian concerns recedes into history, and you are free to rest beyond its grasp. Close your eyes and let the final radiance of the lamp fade into darkness. The journey is complete, the story has reached its end, and here, in the quiet, your own dreams can begin.